Miguel Myers. Welcome to My Horror Confessional, where every week I'll have a guest come on and talk about one classic horror movie that they haven't seen and why. We'll discuss the movie, the actors, and probably get off topic quite a bit. Once I believe they have properly atoned, I will absolve them of their horror movie sin. Today in the confessional, we have Warren Wagner. At 16, Warren realized he was gay at a memorial service for Ronald Reagan, and it was all downhill from there. Wagner's screenwriting has placed in multiple contests, most notably as a finalist in the Austin Film Festival Screenplay Competition. Whether it's comedy, drama, or horror, Wagner's queer perspective makes the material feel fresh and unique. The only safe place left is the dark, is his debut novel from Ghoulish Books. Warren, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So Warren, there's so much in that bio. It's a very short bio, but also it's very I just have so many questions. So right off the top, memorial service for Ronald Reagan is when you realize that you were gay. Are you trolling, or is this real? Is this real?
Yeah, so I come from a small town in Illinois, Schaumburg, Illinois, and
Oh, I'm
my
from Chicago.
oh, are you cool?
Yeah, my wife was in Schaumburg as well. Her
Oh,
aunt
really?
was in Schaumburg. Yeah, yeah.
Well, my grandparents live in got the name of it, Morristown, I think. It's the town that Ronald Reagan was born in.
Okay.
So they do a big deal about him, like they have his childhood home, his museum and stuff. And I was visiting my grandparents the week that he died. And so they were having a memorial service in the school gymnasium nearby. And so they dragged me to it, and it was like 3.5 hours long. There was no air conditioning, but there was like a very attractive little twink who was in the audience. And I was just staring at him the entire time during the memorial service. And like by the end of it, I had worked out in my head, like, okay, I guess I'm gay.
I mean, that's awesome. I mean, that's a story that you'll be able to tell for the rest of your life. Well, so in if this was a rom-com, there'd be some sort of there'd be a meet cute, and you would have gone up to that person. I mean, did you go up to that person? I'm assuming not if you just found out that you were gay.
Definitely not. No. And I mean, the rom com would end with an entire gymnasium of Republicans murdering us, probably.
Yeah, that's true. So, and then my second question is, um, you have some of your screenwriting is placed, and you said most notably an Austin Film Festival. Are you in Austin?
No, I'm in Toronto, Canada.
Okay, okay, gotcha. Because I'm in Austin, and I was thinking, oh wow, that's pretty cool. Okay,
I'll be there at the end of next month, though, for the festival,
for which festival is that?
Austin Film Festival.
Oh, okay, because I know Fantastic Fest is happening right now, and
Yeah.
so Ghoulish is actually having a book fair on Monday at Fantastic Fest, and I'm going to be there tabling for the podcast, which I'm really excited about.
Oh, nice.
And I thought perhaps you're talking about that, but yeah, Fantastic Fest is, and then the Austin Film Festival is another kind of fest in Austin. Austin has just like a really great movie scene. Will that be your first
Yeah.
time in Austin?
No, I've been there the last 2 years for the festival
Okay,
because this novella, it was originally a screenplay, and
really?
it placed as a finalist in the horror competition for Austin. And yeah, so that was the first time I went down, was because I was a finalist for that comp.
So maybe could you tell myself and the audience a bit about the book coming out from Ghoulish?
Yeah. Okay. So I guess the synopsis is it's about an HIV positive gay man who has to leave the safety of his cabin in the woods to go out into the zombie apocalypse and find the medication he needs to stay alive.
I mean, if that doesn't sell you, I don't know. You're not listening. You have no heart if that doesn't sell you. So the only safe place left is the dark. So this started off as a screenplay.
Yeah.
And what, so I know Max, who is the Max and Lori, who are the owners of Ghoulish.
Yeah.
I know his movie, We Need to Do Something, originally started off as a screenplay, and then he changed it into a book. And then from that book, he had to write a screenplay as well. So I think his manager said to try it as a book first after the screenplay. So, what was the impetus for you to go from screenplay to book?
Yeah, so one of the judges of the horror competition the year that I was in Austin was Alvaro Rodriguez. Uh, he wrote Machete. He's a
Yes.
really great screenwriter, and he and I have kind of become friends since then. And he told me like this should really be a book, and then you own the IP, so it's like all yours, and you can do more of them. So he really encouraged me, and then he's friends with Max, so he sent me the submission call for Ghoulish Books, and then I just turned the screenplay into a book over 2 weeks. Like it was a rush job, just trying to learn because I've never written any prose before. So I wrote it in 2 weeks and sent it out to Max, and then a lot of editing happened.
Very nice. So your background it was in screenwriting, not so much author or like being a like for book writing.
Yeah, I've always just been a screenwriter. So I hope to continue writing uh fiction now, but yeah, I've always just been in film and TV.
Very cool. That's very interesting. So with your screenwriting, do you find yourself mainly in the horror genre, or do you kind of focus other places? And this one was kind of just an idea that was horror.
Yeah, I mean, I've never written horror before this one. I've always written mostly comedy. But yeah, I wrote it during the lockdown and so it was a dark time for everyone, I think. So I think the lockdown turned me into a horror writer.
Very cool. I love to hear it. So kind of with that, let's go back a little bit into your background. So with horror, have you always been a horror head? Were you a horror kid growing up? Did your family like it? Did you have friends around you that liked it? That sort of thing.
I've always been a huge fan of horror. Like, I was obsessed with Vincent Price when I was a kid.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, my family was never really a horror family or anything like that. It's just I didn't really even have that many friends who were into horror. It was just kind of like loser me alone watching old Vincent Price movies.
I completely understand how that feels, man. Same. Uh, so it's funny that you should say Vincent Price because um, Night of the Living Dead took a lot of inspiration from one of Vincent Price's movies, Last Man on Earth, which I did just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I heard that
So
episode. I want to defend the film a bit because I think it's much better than you guys were giving it credit for.
The Last Man on Earth? Is
Yeah,
that okay? Let me hear it. Let's hear your let's hear your thoughts.
I don't know. I mean, I just feel like the way it handles loneliness, I love so much. I think it's the biggest inspiration for my novella because it's all about just a person who's been alone for a long time. Because it's like my novella takes place 30 years after the zombie apocalypse. So I think just that whole film, just most of it's just Vincent Price alone, and I love it. I think he's amazing in it. It's awesome seeing him in a very different role from what he's kind of known for. And I think so much of I know they're vampires, but they're very much like zombies. And I
Right.
think even the fact that I think all the actors were Italian except for Price, so it's like voiceover in English of the vampires, and it
Yeah.
just adds this creepiness to it when they're like banging on his door and screaming Morgan, and it doesn't totally match up with their voice. It really creeps me the fuck out. I think it's really great.
Yeah, it's a fun movie for sure. It's definitely an important movie. I just thought that it didn't have the emotional impact that I was hoping for. And I think like for example, if you compare it to Night of the Living Dead, I mean the emotional impact that this movie has on you, especially that ending, which I'm so fascinated to hear about what you thought of when you get to that ending. But like that emotional impact that you feel for Night of the Living Dead, I would have loved to see something similar in Last Man on Earth, and we just didn't see it. It was more, I don't know, I don't know. I liked it and I wanted to love it. That's how I felt about it. But I really I completely understand where you're coming from. I could see how somebody would love the movie. I love Vincent Price as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's the atmosphere that gets me for that film more than it is the actual like the full film itself. I agree. Like the ending of Night of the Living Dead, we'll get into it, I'm sure, but it's very great. but yeah, I think just like capturing the atmosphere of loneliness that Last Man on Earth did, just really, I'm really into it.
How do you feel Last Man on Earth captured loneliness versus something like I Am Legend with Will Smith? Because I remember feeling the loneliness that was showcased in that movie was better than in Last Man
Oh,
on
really?
Earth. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like maybe it's because Will Smith is such a big personality. He
Mm.
doesn't feel lonely to me in it. It's been a few years since I've seen it. I like I Am Legend as well, but yeah, I didn't really find the loneliness. And he's got the dog from the beginning, so I think that also is
I see
something
that.
that yeah,
Yeah,
because yeah, like
yeah,
even Vincent Price is like shitting himself seeing there's a dog because like this is his chance at having a friend finally. Which I Am Legend, yeah, he's got the dog from the beginning, so that's
yeah.
one another thing for me.
That's true. All right. Okay. Guys, if you haven't listened to the Last Man on Earth episode, go take a listen to it. Just a couple weeks ago. It's great. But so back to Night of the Living Dead, or actually back to you. So so you said that you never really had friends around you that were into horror. Um, your how about your like conception of media, be it movies or like books or music, whatever? Was that also in horror? I'm curious as to how your screenwriting was started in the comedy, you know?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I guess I always watched more comedy and drama films,
Gotcha.
but there would be like I would go through periods where like I'll spend a full week only watching like horror films back to back to back. So like I always tried to watch everything that came out. If I ever saw a new horror film at Blockbuster, I get it. So it was like I watched a ton of stuff. So it was never like I was picking one genre over the other really.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So before we get into, actually, let me ask you this. Yeah, before we get into it, how can people follow you? Your social medias? How can they support you? Buy the book? All that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I guess on Twitter and Instagram, I'm at Mr. Warren Wagner. Just Mr. Warren Wagner, all one word. Uh, I have my website is warrenwagner.ca, and that it's a very basic website that just links you to my socials. So that's probably the best way to find me. And the only safe place left is the dark. I suggest getting it from Ghoulish Books, so Max gets the most money from it, but you can also get it from Amazon. Basically, anywhere that sells books, you could find it online at least.
Yeah, it's available. Is it available for pre-order at this point? Or
Oh,
is it
it's
all?
already out.
Is that, oh, it came out August 29th, right? Yeah, okay, so it's out.
Yeah.
So ghoulishbooks.com, you can look it up. I just got my copy Friday or Thursday when I went to the shop. Of course, if you guys don't know, Ghoulish Books is open in Selma, Texas, which is just north of San Antonio. It's one of the best places alive. It's so cool. Warren, when you're in town later or next month, you should. Are you gonna have a chance to go to the shop?
I'm not sure because isn't it a couple hours away from Austin?
It's an hour away. Yeah, it's an hour away.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Uh,
not sure if I'm gonna be able to make it, but I
okay.
really want to because it looks
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. If for some chance you get if for some reason you get a chance, let me know. I'd love to hit up there with you because, like I said, I love
Okay.
going. I'm in Austin, and I take the hour drive down there whenever I can. But so it's available on ghoulishbooks.com. Support them, support Max and Lori. Support. So I was talking to him earlier this week, and I'm like, you guys are basically a mom and pop shop. You guys are just not also. So support your local bookstore, support your local ghouls. So you're here to talk about Night of the Living Dead from 1968. So you confess your sin that you've never seen it. Is that correct?
Yeah, I have a zombie book that just came out, and I've never seen Night of the Living Dead.
I got to tell you, my friend Anthony Jerome, who co-hosted with me a whole season of the show and has been on multiple times, is a great friend of mine. Night of the Living Dead is one of his favorite movies. And when I told him that I had you on, and you had written a zombie book and you hadn't seen Night of the Living Dead, um, the question marks popped up. in front of his head. So I was wondering, as I ask everybody, how did this particular movie pass you by?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I might be the first person on your show that doesn't get forgiven for their sin. It's such a big one. I guess one thing was I did see Last Man on Earth before, and I think I kind of took that film's side, and I didn't like Night of the Living Dead because of that. And then when I can't remember what age I was, but I saw Land of the Dead in theaters, which is one of Romero's later films,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it was I didn't like it at all. I thought it was really bad. So I think that also stained the entire series for me because I just really disliked that film.
Warren, I'm fuming. No, so let me ask you a question. So, uh, so now you've seen Night of the Living Dead, and then you saw Land of the Dead. Besides that,
Yeah,
have you seen any other of the Romero zombie films?
no.
Yeah, so I can understand why if you'd seen Land of the Dead, because you've seen at that point when Land of the Dead came out, you had seen other zombie movies before that, right?
Yeah, I've always liked the zombie genre a lot.
Right. And I could see how you would, because I was kind of the same way. Like, I obviously had seen Night of the Living Dead before, but when I saw Land of the Dead, I was expecting the zombies that I had grown up with, and it was a bit different, even though these are Romero zombies. And in Romero's movies, if you see them in the order in which in the story's order, not chronologically, but in the timeline of the zombie apocalypse, you will see a progression of zombies from, from these dead, slow moving zombies all the way up to the very end where they're like commanding legions of the undead and then even more like so you can see that progression where so people when people say Romero zombies, they take it from Night of the Living Dead, right? This is the most classic example of it.
Yeah,
But if you take a macro look at Romero's films, zombie films, you'd see the progression of the zombies. So, but I could completely understand how you would come to that conclusion. So you just didn't watch it because of that. So that's understandable. So let's talk about Night of the Living Dead from 1968, directed obviously by George A. Romero. So George A. Romero is known as the grandfather of zombie horror. He literally changed the game with this movie. He changed I mean, movies in general with this movie. And he is a very important figure in cinematic history. However, uh, I have plenty of opportunities to talk about George Romero. We're going to do other George Romero movies. So I wanted to focus more on Dwayne Jones as Ben in this episode because we don't have very many opportunities to talk about Dwayne Jones. So, but
yeah,
just know that I understand the listeners that how important George Romero is, and we will get to him at another episode. Written by John A. Russo and George A. Romero. So the cast is Dwayne Jones as Ben. And just a little background, the character of Ben, as everybody famously knows, was originally written as an angrier person and a white person. And this movie is extremely political. It's dealing with racial tensions and stuff like that, even though George Romero didn't says he didn't intend it to be. You have to live in the world in which the movie was made and released, and so that's the world that we're living with. So it's by its very nature political, and so um, Dwayne Jones was given the role, and he expressed concern that the character be rewritten to remove some of the anger, such as the scene where Ben hits Barbara, because he was afraid of how it would be widely perceived in the United States at the time, 1968, to see a black man acting in this way. Um, so the nation was still plagued with high racial tensions during the late 60s. The film was released to theaters shortly after the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. Nonetheless, Romero and most of the rest of the predominantly white crew decided against it, thinking they were being hip by not changing it. Years later, Romero lamented that he had not taken Jones's concerns more into consideration and thought that he was probably correct. Um, In fact, in the so I have the Criterion Collection version of it, which is a 4K restoration of the film that came out in 2017, and in it there's some interviews with Dwayne Jones in there, and he talks about how he was driving with one of the other white actresses, and they would drive together to and from the set sometimes, and they would leave at night, very late at night, because that's when they're filming, right? And what one time or a couple times, I don't remember exactly which, they were being followed, and it was by these white men that were following them, and they were very, very afraid of what was going to happen, and eventually they were able to lose them, and nothing happened. But that's the timeline in which this shit was being filmed, you know. So, in fact, on the final day of editing and voiceover dubbing, it was completed on April 4th, 1968. So Romero and John Russo literally threw the film into the trunk of their car, and they drove to New York to see if anyone wanted to show it. And while driving to New York on the night of April 4th, 1968, they heard on the radio that Martin Luther King Jr. had been assassinated. So that's a bit of a background of the era in which this movie was made and was released and was being consumed. So there's an article entitled Black Death, A Brief History of Black People Dying in Horror Movies. And this was on blackmovies.com, which is actually run by Mark H. Harris. And we have a quote by Mark H. Harris later on in the show. But he's also the co-writer of The Black Guy Dies at the End. And he said, up until this time, in the article, he says, up until this time, black roles in horror movies were tangential at best and non existent at worst. Aside from stereotyped comedic appearances, any roles for black artists were likely anonymous servants or faceless African tribesmen. In the 50s, the same public pressure that halted Mantan Moreland's career likewise caused many of these parts to disappear, but they were replaced with little or nothing. Ben, as played by Dwayne Jones, acquired at once an intense and understated quality that Jones brought to the role. According to the late Carl Hardiman, Ben's dialogue was that of a lower class, uneducated person, but Dwayne Jones was a very well educated man. He was fluent in a number of languages. He had a BA graduate of the University of Pittsburgh. He dabbled in writing, painting, music. He studied in Norway and Paris, and he was completing an MA in communications at NYU between night shots of Night of the Living Dead. So Dwayne simply refused to do the role as it was written. As I recall, I believe that Dwayne himself upgraded his own dialogue to reflect how he felt the character should present himself. So that's a bit about Dwayne Jones. He would go on to be the lead of English, the head of English departments at schools. He taught acting. He was just a great, just overall man. He wasn't just an actor, and in fact, he kind of shied away from the infamy that came with this role to the point where he really just didn't want to be connected to it at all. So then we have Judith O'Dea as Barbara, and she was a 23-year-old commercial and stage actress. She previously worked for Hardiman and Eastman in Pittsburgh, which was a company that made this movie, the producers that made this movie. Carl Hardiman as Harry Cooper. He is one of the film's producers, and he also played the role of the husband to his real life partner, Marilyn Eastman, as well as he was a makeup artist, electronic sound effects engineer, and took the still photos used for the closing credits. So I'm telling you, like, this is like all hands on deck, low budget,
Yeah.
extremely low budget filmmaking was here. Everybody, like anybody who they could not pay to be in the movie, they did so. We had Marilyn Eastman as Helen Cooper. She was the vice president of Hardman Associates, and she played the mother, Helen Cooper, and she helped finance the film. She assisted with makeup and sound, and she also played the role of the unnamed bug-eating zombie that we see later on. Then we have Kyra Sean, I believe that's how her name is pronounced. She plays Karen Cooper, and she is Carl Hardiman and Marilyn Eastman's real life daughter, and she was 9 years old at the time. Keith Wayne as Tom. Keith Wayne was merely the actor's stage name. His real name was Ronald Keith Hartman. This was his only acting role. After this, he went on to work as a singer, dancer, musician, nightclub owner, until he later went to school and became a chiropractor. Actually, I don't know if you need to go to school to be a chiropractor, so I'll take that out. During a 1992 interview, Wayne addressed the incongruity between his careers. And he said, I'm not that person anymore. I got to a point in my life where I wanted to have some control. I didn't want to wake up at 40 or 50 and not be in control. And tragically, in 1995, he ended up taking his own life at the age of 50. Then we have Judith Ridley as Judy. She was a 19-year-old receptionist from Hardiman Associates who auditioned for Barbara, but she was given the less demanding role of Judy. And she explained, I'd never done any acting, and I think they took pity on me. She starred in Romero's second feature directorial movie, There's Always Vanilla, from 1971, obviously less successful. And then we have Bill Hinsman, who played the first ghoul or zombie. We say ghoul or zombie interchangeably because in the movie it's never said zombies. It's always said ghouls.
Yeah.
It's only after the movie came out that people started calling them zombies.
They say flesh eaters a few times too on the TV, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and even the movie was called like Night of the Flesh Eaters originally.
Yeah.
He was the first ghoul encountered by Barbara and Johnny in the cemetery. He went on to work a number of horror films, and he directed the movies The Majorettes and Flesh Eater. Then we have George Casana as Sheriff McClelland. He was also he was the film's production manager. And then we have Bill Chilly Billy Carty as himself. Carty was well known in Pittsburgh as a TV presenter who hosted a horror film anthology series, kind of like Svengoolie or Elvira or that in that vein. It was called Chiller Theater on late Saturday nights from 1964 to 1983. So he played himself in this movie, and yeah, that's the cast. This is the movie synopsis from the MoMA, the Museum of Moving Arts, which was acquired this film in 1980, and it was added to the National Film Registry of the Library of Congress in 1999, which is amazing. I love that. Their synopsis from the MoMA says, George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, arguably the most important independent film of the 20th century, established the modern allegorical notion of the zombie and upped the ante for the next generation of horror films. This tale of 7 strangers in a farmhouse at the beginning of a zombie apocalypse confronts issues that are still very much a part of America's cultural fabric: patriarchy, the nuclear family, and racism. As perhaps the first postmodern horror film, Night of the Living Dead fundamentally questions our ability to trust other people, particularly those closest to us. But it is the film's expression of the utter collapse of society and overt sociopolitical representations that make it a devastatingly relatable experience to this day. So, that's a lot. I think I'm trying to impart onto the listeners the importance of the film. So I just wanted to get that in there. So now we can go ahead and get started talking about Night of the Living Dead. My first thought, as I stated earlier, I was watching the 4K restoration and it looks amazing. So good.
I did too, yeah.
Yeah. And then we get the icon, and I'm going to be saying iconic very much in this movie, but there's literally it's iconic. That's the literal definition of so we get the iconic opening music, and it's creepy and deserted, and it's foggy, and it's down this windy country road, and I absolutely 2 seconds in the movie, I love the atmosphere. What did you think of this first opening shot?
I remember kind of thinking it's a little goofy because I ended up
We're
really
gonna be
liking the
fighting this
film.
whole episode.
Yeah.
I can feel it right now. We're gonna be antagonistic. Okay, go ahead.
So I think I went into this film with a dog shit attitude. It won me over by the end. But so the start, I just was rolling my eyes. I thought the shots were too long. The music was over dramatic, and I was not a fan of the opening of the film.
This movie was over dramatic, but The Last Man on Earth wasn't over dramatic.
It's a masterpiece. Last Man on Earth.
Okay, I see. So then we see Barbara and Johnny. It's like visiting old friends for me. This is like visiting old friends. It feels like coming home when I see them. And we get Johnny bitching about the drive. He's just a fucking grumpy old man by this. Like he's only like 27 or 30, 31 or whatever. But like he's just bitching about it to his sister. Um, and he's basically saying either we need to move mom out here or move the grave to Pittsburgh, right? Because it's like a I think they say it later on. It's a 6 hour drive both ways,
Yeah,
right?
to and from. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I would just tell my mom that I went and I just wouldn't go. I thought Johnny's kind of an idiot that he didn't just lie to his mother.
Well, you got the sister, you got Barbara. She's definitely down.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. And then he says, I don't even remember what the man looks like. And so for me, that's kind of like it probably means that their father died when they were young because these guys are kind of young. They still look really young, and so
Yeah.
that's kind of sad that you didn't have your father in your life long enough to kind of have his image burned in your mind, or any family, any parental figure. Not necessarily your dad, but so sad. And then she says it takes 5 minutes. He's like, yeah, 5 minutes to lay the wreath, 6 hours back and forth, and mom gets to stay home. So they leave the car, and all of a sudden, right as they're leaving, the radio station comes back on, and Johnny notes it. He's like, "Oh, the it wasn't the radio, but they go on." So that's our first inkling that something's off here.
Yeah.
And Warren, um, when it comes time, if there was a specific moment or scene or thing that happened where it like turned you because you said it won you over, let me know because I'm really interested. Unless it was just like won you over towards the end, that's fine. That's fine as well. But I'm kind of interested.
Okay. I'll try to keep that on my mind for
Okay,
going through
cool.
this.
Yeah, and then they look for the grave. They can't find it, and then they find it, and they kind of lay the wreath down. And then Johnny wonders how many times they bought the same one. Because a little spit and shine and all that, and it's good for you for the next year. And I'm like, Johnny's such a fucking grumpy bitch. Uh, Barbara kneels to pray, and Johnny's impatient, like immediately. He says it's 5 minutes, but it's only been 1 minute. Like she's just starts praying. He's like, "Hey, come on, church was this morning." It's like, God damn, like give her some time.
I already started getting won over as I see like Johnny's bitchiness. I was already enjoying it a little bit from there.
100%. And I got a little bit of like, I don't know if it was the gloves, those because he was used leather driving gloves, which you don't see anybody wear anymore. And when you do, it's really weird.
Yeah.
I was a little bit of Dom energy coming from it. I don't know. It's just because he was doing the thing where he was like stretching it out. I was like, okay, dude, all right, okay. Um, so then we kind of get the first sight of the zombie or the ghoul in the background there, and it's kind of slowly wandering around. And I gotta admit, these zombies, the way they act, are very, very similar to the Last Man on Earth, right? They just don't
Yeah.
talk, but they kind of shamble around, stuff like that. At one point, the ghoul, Bill Heinzman, I believe, wasn't sure how to portray the zombie how it walks. And then Romero told him just kind of shamble around. And he's like, yeah, but if I'm shambling and I'm looking very weak, but I also have to be strong enough to fight with these people and break down windows and doors. And George Romero's like, yeah, but just do it. So he's like, okay. So it's kind of incongruous, right? Like the shambling, but then also like the strength that they have when they're up close and fighting.
Yeah.
So he says, church was this morning, and then Barbara says, well, I haven't seen you much in church lately. And he says, there's no sense in me going to church and then for whatever reason, whatever, maybe he's sinning a lot. And I think that's where I was like, I got the thing about the Dom.
Yeah.
And then he immediately launches into a story of him scaring Barbara when they were younger. And this uneases Barbara. So, of course, Johnny, being the older brother, or being the brother, I don't know if he's older or younger, he has to mess with his sister, uh, which I love because having siblings, I would absolutely do the same thing. Do you have any siblings, Warren?
I have one adopted brother that I was raised with, and then I have like eight biological brothers and sisters that I didn't grow up with. But he
Okay.
definitely gives off like older brother vibes to me.
Yeah, and then, like you would fuck with your brothers like if you had the
Yeah.
opportunity, you know. So I love it. Yeah. So then we get the again iconic soundbite. They're coming to get you, Barbara. And now this, of course, iconic. Everybody knows it. Two questions for you. One, had you heard that line before? It feels like it's
Yes. I
ubiquitous.
I heard it before and it sounded dumb to me just hearing it, but then seeing the context of him joking, I get it now.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Just seeing it as its own clip, it's stupid, but I think it works in the context of the scene.
Yeah. And then question for you. Did it sound like he was doing a Vincent Price? Because he definitely had an affectation when he was saying the line, and I thought perhaps it sounded to me like he was doing a Vincent Price impression there.
I kind of got Bela Lugosi vibes from it. Like
Bela
it seemed more
Lugosi.
like Dracula kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had Vincent Price on the mind because of Last Man on Earth, but I could definitely
Yeah.
see Bela Lugosi. So then Barbara is like really pissed about it. She's like walking away, and she says, "Stop it! You're ignorance." Which I say, like that's a line in my vocabulary. I just use it. And then he says it again. They're coming for you, Barbara. She says, "Stop it! You're acting like a child. Look, there comes one of them now. Here he comes now. I'm getting out of here." And he runs off. And then the man, the ghoul, they just think it's a man like wandering, of course, but he comes very close. And Barbara kind of like embarrassedly looks down, like, "Oh, Jesus Christ, my brother is such an idiot." And she attempts to walk away, but the ghoul, the man, shambles closer and closer, and then she grabs her by the neck, and she's terrified at this moment. And like the music swells up here. What were you thinking here, or any notes so far that you've had?
Yeah, I thought it was I was surprised because of all the zombies in the film, he's one of the least gory ones. Like he almost looks like just a normal person. Uh it's interesting that they decided to go that way instead of like having more of a frightening looking zombie to start off with. Like she doesn't run away right away. She sees him and she thinks he's a normal guy.
Yeah, which I kind of I like that. I
Yeah.
understand where you're coming from, but I like the fact that up until the moment he grabs her, she doesn't know that she's in danger. I think
Yeah.
if you had like one eye popped out and like missing a mandible or lower jaw or something like that, she might have run off very quickly. Um, but also Bill Heinzman, I hope I think I'm saying his name correctly. Yeah, Bill Hinsman. Sorry, I'm gonna probably say Heinzman. Please forgive me if I forget. There's a lot of stuff going on right now. But Bill Hinsman, he has a very distinctive kind of jaunt-looking face already. So I like the choice of him as the main character. But I definitely understand, uh, you know, why you would think that they wouldn't have like a more like if you've seen we haven't seen Dawn of the Dead, but Dawn of the Dead they have like the doctor tongue, which his lower jaw is just missing. It's just a tongue ripped out and all that sort of stuff. But so then Johnny is smiling and he looks over his shoulder and he sees that his sister is being attacked and he just kind of tackles the man, throws him down once, but the man gets back up and they kind of tussle again. This time, the attacker, the ghoul, the zombie, throws Johnny to the ground where his head hits the corner of a grave marker. Oof, a goodbye, Johnny. You immediately know. Yes, obviously it's 1968. They can't show it like exactly right, but, so it's like slowed down. He does his. You can tell he doesn't really hit it, obviously, but in terms of movie magic, as soon as it happens, you're like, oh shit, he's dead.
Yeah.
So then we see there's this look between the ghoul, the zombie, and he kind of looks over his shoulder. No, I'm sorry. There's a look between the zombie and Barbara, and she realizes she's all alone out here. And then the
Yeah.
lightning flashes and it lights up both of their faces, and then music kicks up. I mean, chef's kiss. What were we thinking here?
Yeah, it's cool. I like it's like when he opens his mouth too and you see his teeth are all fucked up. I That's the first moment she really realizes like this isn't a normal person. Like this is a dead person here.
Yeah. So my question to you, I know you've seen other zombie movies before and all that. What zombie do you prefer? And I'm not going to get into the whole like running zombies or like 28 days later aren't they're not really zombies, whatever. I don't care about that. Just for the purposes of this conversation, we're going to say they're zombies. So do you like the fast moving zombies, the running zombies, or do you like the slower moving zombies?
I think I like the fast ones more. I haven't seen a horror film that has a slow moving thing done to like I think It Follows is probably I think the best slow moving monster where it's just always coming at you in slow motion. Uh I don't find the zombies in this scary really. I know it's intense and it's slowly like more and more of them slowly pile up and they're walking slowly, but I definitely think I enjoy the more modern zombie that runs fast.
Yeah. I like them for different reasons. I think running zombies are terrifying, and especially like in 20 Days Later, the screeching they do and all that sort of shit. But for I respect where they came from, and I love the Romero zombies as well, just because you know one running zombie you're in danger, one Romero zombie you're not really in danger. But like you're saying, once they start to pile up, and you get like this
Yeah.
horde of zombies, you're fucked, you're in trouble. And I think like if you've seen The Walking Dead at all, The Walking Dead does a really good job of showing the dangers of like hordes of zombies, and really the idea of in The Walking Dead they do this a lot. It's the danger doesn't come from the zombies. Most of the danger comes from other humans, and I
Yeah.
think a lot of that comes from the Night of the Living Dead. You know, um, so then Judith takes off running. Her shoes are already gone at this point. And then the zombies kind of shambling quickly after her, and then she falls. And I was wondering, I have to, I have to do some more research on this, but I wonder if this is the beginning of the woman falling down in the woods while running trope, you know, or if this is the earliest example of that.
Yeah.
Because up until then, it kind of said it in MoMA's intro. Up until that, horror movies were like a lot like very gothic horror, and there was also like in the 50s there was the atomic horror with the big kind of um monsters, that sort of thing. There wasn't really, from what I'm sure there was, but the I think Night of the Living Dead was the biggest example of, like they said, a postmodern horror movie in which the horror was living with you in current time, and it wasn't
Yeah.
monsters, and it wasn't a Dracula, and it wasn't an atomic fucking Mothra or whatever, you know. So I think that's what I really liked about this, because I'm not really the biggest gothic horror movie fan. How do you feel about gothic horror?
Yeah, I like it more when it feels like it's just a real life kind of thing too. Um, yeah, this film it does remind me a lot of Plan 9 from Outer Space.
In a
I
positive
don't
way?
hear, yeah, I don't hear that talked about a lot, like that movie being compared, because everyone just jokes that it's the worst film ever made. But I feel like that was doing zombies almost 11 years before this one did.
Zombies by way of aliens, right? It's been a
Yeah,
while since I've seen it. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, that was that one, or like Troll 2 as like the worst movies ever, or like Manos Hands of Fate sort of thing.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't hear the connection very much to Night of the Living Dead.
Like, has Romero ever talked about Plan 9? Did he ever bring that up as a influence or anything?
No, not that I've ever heard of. He talked about Last Man on Earth, and he talked about Carnival of Souls. He said that that was a big influence on the movie as well, but not that I know of. Did he mention Plan 9? But I mean, people take inspiration from all sorts of places, right? So,
Yeah.
and also he could have said it, and I just didn't see it. So, And then they cut to her, and she was already out of her shoes, but now when they cut back to her on the floor, she has her shoes on and she's kicking him off again. So just a small thing that I love to see, small filmmaking, or low budget filmmaking. But she eventually makes it back to the car, but she didn't have the keys. And then the zombie reaches the car, and that's what the difference between like this Romero zombie and other later Romero zombies was. Like, this motherfucker was trying to open the door, and he goes around the other side and he actually grabs a rock and smashes the window, and it's a bit
I was really
terrifying.
surprised by that. I was really surprised because I don't think I've seen a zombie do that. Like they actually pick something up and break a window like that. I was really surprised when he went to break the window.
Yeah, because you could see there was thought behind those eyes, right? Like
Yeah,
you saw that he looks down, looks around, looks down, grabs a rock, and so there's cognitive functioning happening there. Whereas in later Romero films, and even in this movie, there's different types of zombies, which is kind of cool, like different classes of zombies. So that's kind of a cool idea,
yeah.
not one size fits all sort of thing. Um, so then, as he reaches in, she manages to release the parking brake, which allows the car to go downhill in neutral, obviously. And then the zombies in hot pursuit. And then the car kind of crashes into a tree. I don't know if you noticed this, but right before, in that scene, right before the car hits the tree, it's a perfectly like smooth car door. And then after it hits the tree, you notice that the tree doesn't actually make the dent. The dent was already there. So I don't know if you know, but or if the listeners know, that what happened was they only had one. It's low budget filmmaking. They only had one of these cars, and it was one of the production or executive producers' mother's car that they were borrowing, and she used it when they weren't filming. So at the end of the day, she would get the car back. Well, one night she had the car back and she got into an accident, and so they had to write they had to write this into the script, and so that's what happened here. They just had it crashing into the car. But if you look, once the cut and it hits the tree, the dent was already there. One
I
of those
didn't
things
notice
I
that. That's cool.
Yeah, one of the things I love to see about that. So, because if you guys don't know, and I won't go too much into it because I've been talking a lot, but this was made by George Romero and a bunch of friends who had a small company called the Latent Image, and they did commercials. They started off doing commercials and stuff like that, and they decided to, they did a commercial for Mister Rogers' Neighborhood. I mean, they did a segment for Mister Rogers' Neighborhood, I should say. And so they just decided to try to make some money and make a horror film. And so they were just friends getting together to make a movie. And I love that aspect of it. So she can't get out of one way because that the door is blocked by the tree. So she gets out the other way. She books it. She makes it to a road, and then she comes across the old farmhouse. So from here on out, it's kind of like a one location movie, right? Which is really fun.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask, is it a soundstage or is it a real location, the house? Because some of it felt kind of soundstagey, like this, it felt like stage walls, but then other points it felt like it was a real house. So I wasn't sure exactly what it was.
So the house, the upstairs, and everything obviously outside around it, that was a real house. However, the house did not have a basement. So the
Okay.
basement was actually the basement of the editing facility where they edited the movie. And so
Okay.
but there was no, other than that, there was no sound stages.
It all
And
matches up pretty well then.
yeah, and actually about the house is going to be torn down, but the filmmakers told the owner that they could do it for them, basically, because they actually had to do a lot of work to remodel the inside to make it look livable for their purposes because it was run down. Um,
Yeah.
but they let them shoot there for free, which was real. And in the end, Romero and Russo and one other executive producer ended up living there uh, throughout the whole filming. And it took about 30 days to film the movie, and they lived there for that. And there was no running water, and so they would have to boil water. And they got really used to like just taking cat, what was it called, cat baths, that sort of thing, just the hot spots basically. I'm sure it didn't smell very good. So she books it. She makes it to the road. She comes across the old farmhouse, like we said, and then she tried to get in through one way she can. So she looks to see if the zombie's still coming. It is very slowly, and so she tries another entrance, and she's able to get in. And I feel like that's the opening of the movie. As soon as she gets into the house, I feel like that's the end of the opening of the movie. And I just like look back at it and think, what an amazing for me, uh, who I admit am biased. What an amazing opening to this film. It's just like it sets you up so quickly. You know what the stakes are. Terrifying. I really really enjoyed that opening. Um, what did you think of just the opening of the film?
I think it picks up for me once they get to the house, but I do respect the opening. I think it's really cool, and it's unlike I think a lot of the films that came out at that time.
Right. Yeah. And there's something about this movie being black and white. Um, I I came across this movie when I was probably about 16, and so you were just you were discovering that you were gay at 16, and I was like discovering, horror movies around that time. Well, I didn't really have access to a lot of horror movies other than what my brother was watching. I was like, once he got a license, I could go over to whatever the hell I wanted. I could go to Hollywood Video and raid their horror section. And so I kind of discovered the Night of the Living Dead at that point, and it felt like I had found a time capsule. It felt like I wasn't supposed to know about this. It felt like I was in danger, sort of thing, because this might have been the first black and white horror movie that I have ever seen.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, and so I wasn't. I was like, what is this? What? There's no color. This feels dangerous. And so this movie kind of has like a special place in my heart because of that. But I think the black and white, and even with Last Man on Earth, the black and white just does something to you when you're
Mm.
watching it. Where I don't know, I can't explain it. What? How do you feel when you're watching like a black and white movie?
Yeah, it's weird. I actually read somewhere that people find black and white it feels more realistic because for so long documentaries were black and white, so people think of black and white as realism, even though we see in color. So it's a strange thing, but yeah, it
Yeah,
gives it this like realistic feel to it. Also, I mean, was the film shot on 16 millimeter or was it 35?
it was 35, but then they had to bring it down to 16 to edit.
Okay, because I mean, I love the a lot of the handheld cinematography in the film. I really like. It feels like because a lot of the old black and white movies they're always on sticks, like they're always on a tripod. And this film, like some of the stuff with that's handheld, it really feels cool and like
Yeah,
very modern to me.
yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, definitely. So then Barbara makes it in the house and she's looking around. She believes the house to be empty. She grabs a knife. She walks around looking for people, and she enters a den with mounted trophies. And it's like the music kind of the musical stings come up here, and this for me is a miss because it's like it's just mounted trophies. It's just like warthogs and
Yeah, I thought it
deer or
was a
stuff
pretty
like
lame
that.
attempt at a jump scare, and almost like it felt like it wasn't even timed right, like the music and then the animal head. So that was a definite lose for me. I think that
Yeah,
was a failed jump scare.
yeah. I'll give you that one, Warren. I'll give you that one. So then outside, we see that the zombie has made it to the house, and she hears him, and she goes to make a call and is unable to. The lion being down, and we saw that the zombie was kind of like, as he got close to the house, he knocked down the phone line. So that's why they're not able to make calls.
Yeah.
I kind of like that part, to the inclusion of that. Nowadays, that would be the epitome or the same thing as somebody being out in the country and looking at their cell phone and not seeing any bars, right?
Yeah.
Or their battery being dead. And so far at this point, I really like how Barbara is acting. She's she's made it to the house. She's armed herself. She's looking for help. She's looking to call people for help. And it just, for me, it kind of sucks what happens to her character afterwards. And it's understandable, perhaps, that she's just stunned or in shock. But I would have liked to see something different from that character, even though the character was written to be more proactive. But the actress Judith O'Dea thought perhaps she should play it more how she ended up playing it in the movie, and then Romero and Russo kind of went along with that or agreed with that. And so that's what we see.
Yeah, she's kind of just touching that fucking doily the whole movie and not doing anything.
Have you seen? I'm sure you haven't, or maybe you have, but the remake 1990, Night of the Living Dead.
No, I haven't seen that either.
Okay, um, I won't say anything. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. I'm gonna watch all of the Dead movies now, though. I think I'm gonna get into them now.
I love to hear it. Are you going to watch them chronologically, like as they were released, or are you going to watch it in the terms of the Romero universe?
What do you suggest?
I don't know because I showed them to my nephew this past summer in August when him and his girlfriend came to visit, and they're younger, like 20, mid 20s, younger than me. I don't know how young, but younger than me, and they didn't respond very well to the not very well. They liked it, but they liked the older stuff better. And I think that's just the
Yeah.
environment that they've grown up in, sort of thing. So I wonder if I had shown it to them in the Romero like extended universe sort of thing, if that would have been better. But because the story, like the characters don't continue on, the story doesn't continue on. It's just the universe sort of thing. So
Yeah.
you could watch them either way. I have I'm partial to the Romero original trilogy. Um, but I'm kind of scared because you said you didn't like Land of the Dead. Do you do you often go back to movies that you saw when they first came out that you didn't like, then go back to them and end up liking them, or are you kind of like normally stick with what you originally thought?
Usually I stick with what I originally thought, but I'm
Okay.
open-minded. I'll go into all of them with an open mind. I've heard Day of the Dead is really good. One of my friends told me that that's their favorite of the films. Then Dawn of the Dead, I think, is probably the one I hear about the most outside of Night of the Living Dead. So I'm excited for that original trilogy.
Yeah. So for me, for the longest time, like Night of the Living Dead, I can't say it's just my movie. Not even like favorite movie, not favorite of Romero's. It's just my movie. So when it's just out of contention when it comes to my favorite of the trilogy because it's already up there in the pantheon for me. But of the remaining two, Dawn and Day, for the longest time, Dawn was my favorite because it's easily accessible for everybody, for like a wider
Yeah.
audience. But Day of the Dead is so fucking grim. It's like you're like, holy shit! Like there's no hope left in this world.
I
So
like Grim. I'm a very a grim person. So,
yeah, so very recently I'm like, no, actually, I think I like Day of the Dead better than Dawn of the Dead. So
uh,
I'm excited to hear once you get into these movies. Please let me know. I would love
okay.
what you think about them. So all right, so she sees that the first zombie has been joined by other zombies now, and the night has settled on the land. She cautiously goes upstairs, but only makes it a few steps when she sees like the picked clean skull of a human being and yells. To me, this looks great. Obviously, we're in 1968. Like this is practical effects. Yes, those are ping pong balls for eyes, but I don't care. It looks great. What did you think?
I liked it. Yeah, I like all the practical effects in the film. Later on, you see the hand and it gets cut. It looks so fake, but I like it. So yeah, this part I started. the film started winning me over big time as the more we go on now.
Nice. Love to hear it. Yeah, it's so the thing about practical effects that I harp on is like it's so charming and earnest. Like you see what they were trying to do and you respect what they were trying to do. And it feels truthful. Whereas like CGI, I know I understand CGI and I know it's in a lot of the movies that I love and I really don't have a problem with it. But sometimes it feels like CGI isn't is kind of lying to you a little bit. Like it's trying to trick you. Whereas here, it's with the practical effects, it's like, yeah, I know what you're doing. That's fucking awesome. I see the work. I see the work that went behind it. Like much respect, that sort of thing. And the hand that you were talking about later on, I think it's Tom that's kind of swiping at it.
Yeah.
It's literally a hand that was made out of clay filled with Bosco sauce, which if you don't know, if the listeners don't know, Bosco sauce is chocolate syrup, which is what they used for blood in like older movies.
Yeah.
Uh, what's another brand name for chocolate sauce? Is it like Hershey's?
Hershey's what I grew up with.
And do you just say Hershey's chocolate sauce, or
I usually just say chocolate sauce, but Hershey's what I think of, I think.
okay, cool. Because I think maybe Bosco is highly regional. Because I only I
Yeah, I've
only
never
hear
heard
of
of
it.
Bosco.
Yeah, I only hear of it when talking about this movie. So so this looks great. And actually, Romero is the one who made up this face. He's the one who created it, which is great to see.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So terrified, she runs down the stairs and out the door. And as soon as she runs out the door, she's lit up by these truck headlights. And suddenly a man appears, and Barbara is startled. We don't know if it's because she didn't know if this man was like the others and was dangerous, or if it was because the man is black. Because we're now introduced to Dwayne Jones as Ben. And when I see this, every time I see this, I'm like, oh hell yeah, we're in good hands now. We're safe. He emits safety to me, which is great. He's a great leading man, very charismatic. Uh, I mean, we talked about it in the opening. What screen presence he brings, you know.
Yeah, I mean that was my favorite part of the film. It's so disorienting, just the way that so many quick cuts and it's out of focus with the lights, and then you just see his face, and I really like that part of the film. I was excited about it. It was
Yeah,
the first time I really was like into the film. Like, okay, let's go.
nice.
This looks good.
So Warren, I forgot to ask you, but what similar to the line "They're coming to get you, Barbara." This movie is kind of ubiquitous in just the regular world, like in the zeitgeist sort of thing. So, what parts of the movie were you aware of before having watched
I think I definitely had seen. I think is it Bill Hindman? You said
it? Hinsman or Hinman?
Hinman.
Hinman?
I think his face is the most familiar of all the zombies to me. That I'd seen him walking a lot, and then I've heard the Barbara line. I don't think there's too much else that I had seen of it.
I I envy you. And this may at the end you may have saying I didn't even like the movie. That it doesn't matter. Then that's perfectly reasonable. That's your opinion. But like I envy you being able to watch this movie for the first time just because I loved it so much. But okay, that's great to hear. That kind of know where you're coming from as far as what you knew about the movie. So wait, so did you know that there was a black lead?
Like you'd mentioned it in Last Man on Earth. That's
Okay,
when on your episode. That's the first time I heard that he was the lead.
okay, cool. So then we see Ben. He reassures her. Oh, I'm sorry. But Ben looks behind him and sees that the zombies are getting closer. So he kind of grabs Barbara, puts her inside, and locks the door. He reassures her, says, it's no problem. I can handle that one. He explains that his truck is out of gas. He asks about the pump outside and if there's a key. But Barbara does not answer. This is where she, like, as soon as she sees, she's like shocked by the presence of a man or possibly by the presence of a black man. Who knows? But from that point on, she's in shock for the rest of the movie up until the very end, and it's too late, you know. But she doesn't answer him. He tries the phone as well, and then she kind of draws his attention to the dead body upstairs. Um, so he sees it and gets kind of repulsed by it. He starts looking for food. Um, some blood drips on Barbara. Kind of going quicker here. Outside, the zombies have started to break the headlights on the truck. So again, you're seeing some not so
Smart
zombie-like
zombies.
behavior. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, kind of still in her daze, Barbara asks what's happening. Ben goes outside and dispatches two zombies with a tire iron. One of them, he takes the sharp end and just smashes it into their skull, which is great. I love that. And the camera angle, I like Romero's camera angles. Like a lot of it, like he'll just be looking up at a tree and then slowly zoom it or slowly move it to focus on what the actual part of the scene was. That's important. I don't know. What did you think of the cinematography and Romero's like directing of the movie?
I loved it. That was one of the biggest surprises for me is I was expecting the film to just kind of look like shit because I knew that it was a very low budget film that's very old. I wasn't expecting I mean, a lot of it I'm a big fan of John Cassavetes and a lot of it was actually reminding me of like moments in Cassavetes films when he was shooting with black and white 16 millimeter handheld. It felt a lot like that. So I was really into the visual style that Romero got out of the film.
Right. So I just realized then if this was your first well, of before having seen Night of the Living Dead, was the only Romero film that you'd seen Land of the Dead?
Yeah, which I don't think that's a good looking film at all from what I remember. I remember it just kind of looking very basic to me.
It felt digital. I'm sure it was maybe
Yeah,
perhaps shot on 35 and transferred to digital. I don't know, but I agree. Not, I don't think he took a lot of chances like he did here and a lot of different
yeah,
um, shots and all that. But those are as of right now, those are the only two Romero movies you've seen.
yeah,
Okay, gotcha. Okay. So inside, so while Ben is outside dealing with those two zombies, inside a zombie appears from a closet behind Barbara and kind of slowly and shambling towards her. Ben comes back inside and tussles with it, and again, this might have been the time when he sticks the tire iron into the zombie's head, but
yeah. I think
uh,
that was when he did it.
yeah. And then outside, another zombie almost makes it inside. He gets hit right in the face, and the zombie actually puts his hand up like it's painful, which was kind of comical to me there. Like where
Yeah, I
I
made a
understand.
note of that. I thought it was interesting that it's like, do they actually feel pain? Because later on, the guy getting shot, he doesn't seem to feel it at all. But then that one, he seems to really feel it when he gets hit in the face.
Yeah, I think this is like the telltale sign of Romero not really knowing, and nobody really knew what this was going to turn into, right? And so he had
Yeah,
like no way thought he was going to make a sequel. And so I don't think they had really fully thought out what the zombies were going to be and um, what their demeanor and their actions were going to be, and that became more refined as the the series went on. But yeah, so it's a very uh, incongruous kind of behavior from different zombies in a movie. So then Ben tells her not to look at the zombie, takes it outside and sets it on fire. And as we see more zombies approaching the house, and there's a bunch already accumulating around the
yeah,
house. And then Ben tells Barbara to turn lights on in the house, and he looks for material to board up the doors and the windows. He's also looking for keys for the pump. And Ben almost loses his temper, but he controls it and tells her he knows she's afraid, but they need to board up the house. Now, this part where he almost loses his temper, in the original script, he was supposed to lose his temper with Barbara and yell at her. But Dwayne Jones felt that as a black man yelling at a white woman this early on in the movie, he couldn't afford to lose the audience. And so he made the decision to not yell at her and to control his not, to control the character's anger and to be more patient and understanding with her because during that time he needs the audience still on his side, right? So these are some of the
Yeah.
things that he had to deal with while portraying this character, and it just goes to show the level of skill that it took to portray this role. Because without Dwayne Jones in this role, I think this movie would have made an impact. I don't think it would have made as quite a big impact, the cultural impact on society as at large that it did without him in this role.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's amazing in it. I think it sounds like he put a lot of thought into it, knowing like in 1968 being a black man who was going to be the lead in this kind of film. I wish my biggest problem with the film is I wish Romero like touched on race more in it. I feel like the playing up the tension of a white woman and a black man alone in a house like this when Ben first comes in, she's just it never to me, I didn't read it as being a thing for her or playing up when I think they could have really played up the tension there and made the film more political. I think it's a political film just because of who Dwayne Jones is, but I feel like they don't actually go into the politics enough in the film. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree. I agree that they don't go further into the politics. I don't know how I feel about whether or not I wanted them to go more political.
Mm,
Like, I understand like it's needed, especially like in this day and age. With the just the times that we're in. Like horror has always been political, and this is a very
yeah.
great example of that. But I think there's something about a black man being in a movie and it not being addressed that he's black, and him just being a man. You know, I think there's something really powerful about that. And then just by just by being who he is, it's political just by his existence. But I don't know. I'm kind of torn on it. I like the fact that it's just them because if it gets political, then we got dudes like calling him the N word, and it's like you don't have very many safe spaces in horror or just in the world in general where you can get away from that
Yeah.
sort of thing. And if
Cooper is definitely a racist. You can tell just by
oh
looking at him. So, yeah,
yeah
it wouldn't have changed the film for me if he was like using the N word. I wouldn't have loved that in the film, but I think they could have touched on it a little bit more. But
yeah
I mean, I love that he's the lead of it, and I think he's the best part of the film by far.
yeah I can agree to that. Yeah. So then Barbara's looking around the house and she finds this she finds this music box, and it's a great shot. I don't know if you remember it, but it opens up and
Yeah,
inside it's mirrored and it shows different shots of her, and it's kind of like she's cracking up. She's busting up into different versions of herself. What did you think of this shot?
I thought it was really intense because I also thought that the mirror was going to move and you were going to see a zombie or something.
Oh, that
So
would have been a great shot. Yeah.
yeah, but I loved that shot. I thought it was really cool, and like it kind of is almost like a pause because like everything's so intense, and then just like she's just staring at this little music box. I found it really intense.
Yeah, I agree. So then Ben is making a lot of noise, which comes back later because he's like boarding up doors and windows, stuff like that. And Barb tries to help, but isn't really a lot of help. Then Ben kind of explains to us that they're afraid of fire. He's dismantling a table to basically make a torch later on. And he tells us the story of where he was at. He was at a place called Beekman's Diner where he found the truck that he has. And there was this gasoline truck with zombies just hanging all over it, and it drove right through a billboard and drove through a gas station, and he could still hear the man screaming. Uh, the truck driver inside of it screaming as it was on fire. So it blows up, and as it was on fire, the things backed away from the fire. So that's how he knows that they're afraid of them. And Barb is seemingly, it looks like she's not getting a word of it. So then he says like 50 of 60 of them were like surrounding him, and he just drove through them with the truck. Then
Yeah,
Barbara tells him about Johnny. So she's taking in some information, right? and she basically tells him what happened. He's like, Johnny asked for some candy, and she's really focusing on the candy. And then she goes, so her version of the story of that the coming to get you is a little bit different than what we saw happen.
Yeah.
She's like, he's coming to get you, and she says she laughed at him. No, you didn't laugh at him. You were pissed off at him. And then she says that as the man came up to her, she said good evening. She didn't. I'm sure she was going to say that in her mind, but he attacked her first.
Yeah.
But then she says that he grabbed me, he ripped at me, and like the acting was really, really well done here. Like you felt like, you know, it felt almost like she was describing trigger warning here, but she was describing some sort of sexual assault, right? Because, and even later on, I think there could be something said about that. Perhaps they were referencing that, later on in the movie when she her last scene, let's say, like something happens and it looks like it could potentially be sexual assault. So that's what I was getting from it. But the Judith O'Day did an amazing job acting here, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I remember because I didn't go into this film thinking I was going to see good performances, but this was a scene where both with Dwayne Jones telling his story, then her telling like the recap of what we already saw. I was like, oh, this is actually like really good performances for, especially for a horror film. I thought both of them did a really good job there,
Yeah.
and I don't think she's particularly good in a lot of the other scenes, but I thought that she does a really good job in this one.
Well, it just goes to show if they had perhaps gone the way that it was originally intentioned with the character, what we could have
Yeah,
seen, because she's in this scene when she is allowed to act, I think she does a
yeah,
great job in it.
yeah. So she had it in her. She just kind of sits there for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. And Warren, I just want you to know I'm hearing these little digs that you're throwing at the movie here and there. Don't think that they're not going unnoticed because they're noticed, okay? So she says that all of a sudden she remembers that her brother's out there. Johnny's alone,
Yeah,
and he says, your brother's dead. And she gets angry and she smacks him, and he wheels back and punches her. Iconic, absolutely fucking iconic. I want a shirt with that image. Anthony Jerome, I know you're listening. Let's get shirts so we could be twinsies. I want that for us. Absolutely love this. She faints and he lays down, or he picks her up and lays her down um, on the couch, and he like unbuttons her jacket to let her breathe some more. So, real quick before I ask you what you thought, it was written in the script that Barbara was to smack Ben at least 3 times, said Judith O'Day. But this was a very sensitive issue for Dwayne at the time, and he said, I can accept being smacked once, but I don't want to play it the way you've written it. It was rewritten, and she smacked him once, and then she says he gave me the fist right in the face. So I liked the fact that when he was uncomfortable with aspects of the script, the way they were written, like a white woman smacking a black man 3 times, he's like, I don't want to do that.
yeah.
I like the um, autonomy that Romero as a director gave, and that Dwayne Jones as an actor sought out. You know. So, what did you think of this thing?
Yeah, I thought it was really intense. It's interesting they don't talk about it going forward at all. Like they have this very intense moment with each other, and then they don't talk about it going forward. But I think Ben clearly feels bad about it. I think it's really sweet in a few minutes when he puts on the slippers for her, or like the shoes that he finds, and
Yeah,
he puts them on her while she's in shock. It's like a very nurturing thing that he does, and it's very sweet. So I think like Ben feels bad for hitting the lady, and he tries to like make up for it.
yeah. I feel like kind of 2 minds of this. Like, obviously, violence against women is terrible, and especially in horror movies, even older movies of any like drama movies or whatever. You always, whenever a woman is quote unquote hysterical, right? Men smack them to bring them out of it, and that's obviously not any way to treat somebody. Um, but in this particular moment in the movie, in the world in which the movie's happening, she is in shock, and she's attempting to go outside, and he needs to bring her back. And there's probably different ways to do it, perhaps throwing her in a closet, without violence. But so I feel different ways about that. But in the context of the era and a black man hitting a white woman, like I don't know, it's iconic for me. Um,
Yeah.
but then, so next, he's trying the radio, and he hears a new news broadcast. Um, and then we kind of hear what's happening. He said they say these are the facts. There's an epidemic of mass murder happening with no apparent reason for the slaying. A bunch of other things. Some of the stuff that stood out to me was like there's an explosion of mass homicide. Ordinary looking people are in a trance. Then he looks outside and he sees them, just like it just seems like they're multiplying more and more and more. And so
Yeah.
he starts a fire. And this is when I start to panic. Not really panic, but I start to feel a little bit like there's more and more of that happening. Every time you look out, there's more and more, and it's starting to feel a bit claustrophobic. And I have a touch of claustrophobia in me.
One thing I also thought was really cool is with the radio, it felt like I'd seen this before because so many other films have copied this. Like there's a lot of it where I'm surprised how similar modern zombie films and TV shows are to Night of the Living Dead. Like it's obviously like so iconic, but you'd think that the genre would have grown more and changed just because that's what happens a lot with different kinds of genre things. They add
Yeah,
different things, and it's still almost exactly the same as it was in this. Like I find that really interesting.
yeah, that's a great point. And now, Warren, allow me to take a shot at Last Man on Earth. In the movie, he goes, he's got a ham radio or something like that, and I guess
Yeah.
he's part of his routine is to check it once a day or whatever. And we even said it in the show. He goes to one channel, says hello, hello, and then immediately switches to another channel. Does not allow the person to respond. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Okay.
No, I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that.
Okay. So then he starts a fire, and then we hear that this is happening all over the United States. The mayors of Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Miami, they're reporting these mass homicides, and they tell everybody to stay inside your house. Um, Office workers are told to stay at work, do not attempt to go home. But of course, what would happen in real life as well? The highways are packed with people trying to go home. I don't know what I would do in that situation. I would probably be one of the dumbasses trapped on the highway trying to get home. What would you do in this scenario, Warren?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I live in a big city, so I'd want to get the fuck out of here as quickly as possible, and I'd probably end up dying trying to get out of Toronto.
Yeah. So I just thought of a question, Warren. So now having seen Night of the Living Dead, and then obviously you've seen zombie movies before that and researching for your book and all that.
Yeah.
Do you see any influences on your book that you got from the later zombie movies that were actually perhaps started in Night of the Living Dead? So, for example, like you were just talking about people listening to the radio to try to get information for that sort of thing.
I think mine takes place 30 years after the outbreak, so I
Okay,
don't have a lot of the tropes of when it's actually happening. I'm sure I
gotcha.
would have if I wrote it that way. So I see more Last Man on Earth in my book, but I mean, a big part of my book is that people are more dangerous than zombies, and that's something I think that they created here with this one because
Yeah,
Cooper is just a fucking psychopath. So
yeah, and I can't wait to get to Cooper because it's an interesting dynamic, and I think the situation could be resolved differently for everybody. But
yeah.
so then so back to the movie. Um, Not Dwayne, Ben. Ben takes a couch outside, sets it on fire to get them away from the house. And I've always been worried about this because the flames go 12 feet in the air. There's a tree like right above it. And
Yeah.
I always think like, God damn, you're going to set the whole house on fire. So then on the radio, we hear that the president has called a meeting of his cabinet, including NASA. This is like the first time we hear an inkling about like space stuff happening. And then we hear that it's kind of happening on the eastern third of the country. And later on, we'll hear more about that. But then we get a shot of a door that was hidden behind another door. And
Yeah.
then it kind of focuses on that. And you're thinking, I wonder what's going on there. So Barb wakes up from getting her ass beat. And on the radio, it says that these are some murder happy characters, misshapen monsters, and they're who are in a trance. And apparently, it started about 2 days ago with the murder of like 7 family members. And it started in the southeast of America, which is goddamn Florida. Fucking Florida, man.
It
Started
always
the fucking
starts
zombie
there.
apocalypse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you able to tell, or is that something that you touched on in your book about where, like, patient zero, the concept of patient zero? Is that something that you went into?
No, with mine, like in my world, there's no real explanation of anything with the zombies. It just
Okay.
he was living in a cabin when it happened already because he had left society kind of. Then society fell, and so there's no explanation for it or anything like that. So yeah, we don't go into any of that in the book.
Gotcha. So, what do you think about? Also, let me get to that first, and then I'll ask the question. As Ben's looking through the house, he finds a rifle. Then we hear that there's been no cases west of the Mississippi, except extreme southeast Texas, which of course I'm in Texas, of course. But Ben is trying to talk to Barbara. He says we're good right now. We have a gun, we have bullets, we have food, we have the radio. And on the radio, he hears "Stay at home." He says, "That's us. We're doing all right." Then Ben tells Barb that he's going upstairs, and on the radio, we hear that they're starting to realize that the victims have been partially devoured by their murderers.
Yeah.
And upstairs, Ben moves that dead body with that skull that we saw. And actually, that dead body was played by the actress who played Karen. So her name, Kyra Shan. What she played that body because they didn't want to do just a mannequin, so she played it, which is
Yeah.
kind of cool. So then back in the radio, it says the killers are eating the flesh of their victims, and it's more ghastly with each report. So for you, as a screenwriter, what do you think of the exposition? They're using um, the newscast, the radio, for a lot of basically an exposition dump. So what do you think of this?
I like it. I mean, I think because it's a contained film. They don't have the budget to show a lot of stuff, and I think the newscasts really like paint a lot of stuff in your mind about what's going on in the world, and it makes the zombies outside the house more frightening. Hearing all this stuff, so I think it's one of the best parts of the film is the newscast.
Yeah, I agree. Like some movies, it's just like an exposition to like characters talking with each other, and you're like, guys, I know what you're doing. Like
Yeah,
this is bad. But this one, it's natural because you listen to the news, and it's not like he's sitting there just listening to the news, like, wow, like he's actively doing other things, and it's just off on in the
yeah,
background, and kind of like we're getting it as he's getting it, as they're getting it, I should say, and just I thought it was really well done.
yeah. I really liked that part.
Yeah. So then Barb then notices the door opening up and yells, and then 2 men come out from behind it, and we meet Harry and Tom. And Ben runs down backstairs, and Tom says, "Don't shoot. We're from town." And then fucking Harry just walks up immediately. He's like, "Oh, there's a radio here." And immediately I'm like, "Oh, he's gonna be trouble." The minute you saw Harry, what did you think?
Yeah, I was like, oh, this guy's a fucking dick. I can tell. And I was not disappointed. This man is he is a real dick. I love him. He's
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
Yeah. And this scene, because it's self-contained, because it's kind of one location film from here on out, for the most part, this feels like a play. And Dwayne Jones comes
Yeah.
from the theater. And the acting between Dwayne and Carl is like the animosity between them is immediately apparent. And and like you said, I believe that Harry is a racist and cannot and will not abide by a black man being in charge and telling him, Harry, what to do. And so the actor Carl Hardman, who played Harry, was always asked, "What did you think about your character being reviled?" And he said, "I think I did a really great job acting," which is really, really right. He did the job. He did the damn thing. People hate this motherfucker.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a really fun, campy performance. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So then Ben is fucking pissed. He asks, "Why did you help?" And Harry says, "The cellar is the safest place." And Ben says, "Didn't you hear the noise?" And Harry's like, "Yeah, but we didn't know what was happening. It could have been those zombies." He says, "The girl was screaming. You know what a girl screaming sounds like." He's like, "Yeah, but I'm not going to place my life in danger. Like, I could have been ripped apart. I could have been, whatever. I could have been killed." And he's like, "Okay." I love this part. Ben is like, "Okay, which one is it? You can't hear very well
Yeah.
downstairs, or you can hear, but you didn't want to put yourself in danger." And he's like, "Okay, you tell me this. Like, the what are we gonna do? Put our lives on the line? I got a kid." So like immediately you could tell that Harry is a coward, and the fact that his wife knows it and calls him out on it repeatedly throughout the movie, I fucking love it so much. I love it. So then this is when the fight between them going down in the cellar and them staying upstairs begins, and it happens throughout the movie. Harry tells them that they're very strong in numbers, and they turned over his car so they can get through that lousy wood, the doors and the stuff on the windows very easily. And then uh, Ben says, "We have everything that we need here." Oh, I'm sorry. Harry says, "We have everything we need here, and we can take it all downstairs." And basically, Ben's like, "I'm fighting for up here and everything that's up here." Basically, what does he say? He says, "You can go downstairs. I'm the boss. You can be the boss downstairs. I'm the
Yeah.
boss up here." Fucking amazing line. I loved it.
Yeah.
And it might not have been in that exact sequence, but that's how I'm remembering it right now.
I definitely near the end of the film we should talk about who was actually right because I think
That's what I
about the upstairs versus downstairs.
that I actually wanted to. I don't know about right or wrong. I don't think you can ever tell. But what I thought was they both had points, and if they had, I 100% understand that Harry was a piece of shit, coward, racist bastard, right? I'm not taking anything away from him. And Dwayne, or I'm sorry, Ben is our hero, and he's been heroic throughout the movie. He's saved Judith and everybody else multiple times. However, with that being said, they were both hard headed, right? And they both could have come, they if they had worked together, they could have realized that essentially what Tom was saying, he was like the middle ground. Guys, we don't have to choose. We can stay up here until the moment that we need to retreat, and then we retreat. And then that's it. And then, like you said, in the end, it's proven that perhaps the basement was probably the safest place to be when you have no other choice, right? When you're out of
Yeah.
options. So I don't know. I felt like this was just a testament to toxic masculinity, right? Like
Yeah.
both of them wanted to be the alpha dog. When if you just calmed the fuck down and talked it out, we could have come to a resolution, and everybody would probably be alive.
Yeah.
That was my viewpoint on it. But I was certainly, I would, I mean, just for the sake of arguing, I'd love to hear what you thought about who's right or wrong. But we could do that now, or we could do that at the end.
Yeah. We can do it now. I mean, I think Tom was right. They should have. stayed up there so they had the food and the radio and stuff, but then they should have ended up, and that's what Ben did, and Ben's the only one who is alive at the end. Somehow the dead did not get into the basement door when it seems a lot weaker than the doors in the main floor where they're boarding it up and stuff. They just put a little piece of wood on there and then they don't get into the basement. So
Excuse me,
the
sir.
basement was a good,
2 pieces of wood. 2 pieces of wood.
I'm sorry, 2 pieces. But yeah, I thought it was interesting because yeah, Ben wasn't totally right. They weren't totally safe there. They should have gone down to the basement at some point. And maybe if they had a little earlier, more of the people would have been alive by the end.
Yeah, I agree. I agree to that. I think they both allow their egos to get in the way instead of
Yeah.
coming to a better conclusion. But also, you're in that situation. There's literally dead fucks outside of the house. Like you don't really like we're talking about this now in the comfort of our homes. Imagine that you're in this shit. Do you have the time to think about it and sit down and be calm and rational? Probably not. I don't know. I'd be crying my eyes out in the corner. Who the fuck knows, right?
I don't think I would, if I was Ben, I wouldn't want to give Cooper a win either. I would be like, fuck you, dude. I would be the same. Like, I would take Ben's position because I was definitely on Ben's side during the fight. Then I was like, no, that'd be really dumb to go in the basement. Then there's no way out. There's only, if they get in the basement, you're fucked. They're going to just eat you. So I was on Ben's side the whole movie until the end when I was like, maybe he should have listened to Cooper a little bit more.
Yeah. So then they kind of go back and forth on that, and then like um, Ben is saying, this is the safest place here, and then as he's walking past the window, a zombie grabs him. So not the best time for his point there, but this is where Tom is just hacking at it with a knife, and
Yeah.
that's the one that the hand that's made of clay and filled with Bosco. Ben shoots one, and this is what you were saying earlier. It stuns it, like backs up a little bit, but he stays up and does it again. Same thing, nothing. Third time he shoots it in head and he goes down. Now we know we got it. So the zombie
Yeah.
rule, shoot him in the head, right? Double tap sort of thing. Now we see all the zombies have surrounded the house. It feels like a siege now. And there's zombies in various states of dress. And this is a very Romero staple. You see zombies, all walks of life, nurses, doctors, teachers, garbage men, different costumes. Like everybody went to their local spirit and got the costume of their choice, and that's what you see. And you see that throughout the movies. You see that in Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead, and going forward, it's kind of like a staple. Whereas like something like in The Walking Dead, all the zombies are one color, drab brown, right? Which probably
Yeah.
makes a little bit more sense, like because it's been 10 years at that point, and like clothes is rotting and all that. But in the zombie movies, very not in this one, but so much I was gonna say Technicolor, but like in Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead, it's more Technicolor. So, but I love this part, and then
That's what the naked woman is there too, right?
right, yeah, we see a naked
Yeah.
woman as well. So then this is where Ben says, "Line, go down in your cellar. I'm taking the girl. Keep your hands off of her. I'm fighting for everything up here, including food and radio." Harry says, "I got a kid," and then he says, Ben says, "You're her father." Tough for the kid that her father's so dumb. Love the line. Go downstairs. You can be the boss down there. I'm the boss up here. And then the look on Harry's face when a black man tells him this, when like has the audacity to talk to him like that, just impeccable. I love it. You love to see it. And then he just says, "You bastards," and he goes downstairs, and he ends up telling. Do you remember what happens here in this scene where he goes
When he's
downstairs
with
to
his
his
wife
wife?
and
Yeah,
yeah, he's like moping and he lights up a cigarette and he's just like stewing about it,
right.
and his wife's like just talking down to him the whole time.
Yeah, and like she finds out he basically lets it slip that uh uh Tom and Judy have gone upstairs because there's a radio up there. And she's like, "There's a
Yeah.
radio and you locked us in down here?" And so she's like, "You're a fucking idiot." So, but he lights up I think Ben lights up a cigarette or something like. There's a bunch of smoking in this movie. I don't recall.
Yeah, Cooper, like he's out of smoke, so then he goes into his wife's purse and takes one of her cigarettes.
Yeah, without even asking, just like going in
Yeah.
there. Um, so then back downstairs, Harry says that he's not taking any unnecessary chances, and then she says, "Of course not, Harry." And it's so knowing that, of course, you're a coward. You're not going to take any unnecessary chances, and he did not like that response at all. So she was dragging him, and I loved it. Um, and then so this is where I said like he's a proven coward with a proven track like a track record of cowardice.
Yeah.
This is when we find out that their kid Karen is sick, and he says, "Let them stay upstairs. We'll see who's right." And then Helen says, "That's important, isn't it, to be right?" And like she knows him so well. She knows exactly the type of person she is. She's just reading him for filth right here. What were you thinking when you were seeing this happening, this unfolding?
Yeah, I was enjoying it. I mean, I don't think their marriage would have survived if they survived this this zombie apocalypse. But yeah, I think Harry's such an interesting character that he's no one respects him at all. And like he's just so bitchy to everyone and he has to be right. I find his character just fascinating. And I love the dynamic he has with his wife.
Yes. I mean, she says, "We may not enjoy living together, but dying together isn't going to solve anything." Then she says, "Those people aren't our enemies." And that's exactly what I was saying. If she had been allowed to have more of a voice, if or even if Tom had been allowed to have more of a voice, we
Yeah.
we could have come to an understanding, and perhaps everybody uh, could have survived here. So voices of reason. I like that there's voices of reason within the characters, and they're not.
Yeah,
And
and
it's
that they don't get heard really. Like you don't listen to the voices of reason necessarily.
yeah, which is very like true to life, right?
Yeah.
Reactionaries are the people that get listened to, right? And unfortunately, no matter Ben's good intentions, he was a bit reactionary. Same as same as Harry, of course.
Yeah.
So so Judy goes downstairs to watch Karen, and which allows Helen to come upstairs, and then Cooper goes back upstairs, and he's kind of looking for anything useful to him. Helen lights up a cigarette, and Barb finally notices her. That's where she's playing with that doily that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And then Harry just continues complaining and saying the windows are of no use. And then she says, his wife, Helen says, "Why don't you do something to help somebody?" Amazing. Like she's got this character down to a T. Like you're just complaining, you're not doing anything productive. Um, so then they kind of all get together. They get the TV, and Harry tells Barb to pay attention because he doesn't
I
want anybody's life on the line, or life in his hands, I should say. And then what did Ben say? Ben says, "I don't want to hear any more out of you, mister. If you stay up here, you take orders from me, and that includes leaving the girl alone." Ben has had it. Ben has had it with this motherfucker.
Yeah, he's so annoying. Just like Barb just sitting there minding her own business, and he tells her like, "You better watch this." I really like. It's great.
Yeah. So then on the TV, they say that this is not mass hysteria. These are creatures who feast upon the flesh of their victims. After medical examinations, it showed that the victims had been partially devoured. And then the undead are returning to life, committing acts of murder. They say homes, morgues, and hospitals. The unburied undead are coming back to life. Then they say, "Before we told you to stay home. Oopsies, our bads. We're now telling you to go to these rescue stations." And they're flashing rescue stations all on the bottom of the broadcast.
Yeah.
And when Romero and Russo were deciding what to put on the screen, they decided to put these names of these stations and put a lot of them like around their area because they thought worst case scenario it could be kind of like when a artist goes, you know, Wichita, what's going on tonight? Like always shouting out the name of a small city, that they could do that and then show the movie at all those locations and get people out to support the movie because they see the name of their small city on the big screen, sort of thing. So they're thinking ahead of that.
Entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So then the TV broadcast is asking, why are space experts being consulted on earthly issues? Then we find out that there was some sort of Venus satellite that returned back to Earth and there's some radiation involved. And for me, I don't really like this aspect of trying to explain the apocalypse, the zombie apocalypse. I for one don't need to know why. It just is.
Yeah. It
So
reminded me of Five Nights from Outer Space too, because it was like coming from space, and it's like were there aliens that did this? But then later they say like the radiation zapped the ghouls' minds to life, which is interesting. I've never heard that in another zombie film. I guess I mean I think it's kind of dumb, so I'm glad they don't keep going with this. But
yeah,
yeah, it was interesting because I was very surprised when that came up and they explained it that way.
we're not going to get into how the vampires turn into vampires in Last Man on Earth.
Bats,
So then the next we see some reporters in Washington D.C. and they're interviewing as they're walking. Um, they're interviewing generals and scientists that all have been talking with the president. And one of the reporters, the main reporter talking, was actually played by George Romero, which is really cool.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So they're asking about the radiation. Was it the cause of the mutation or wasn't it? And both the military men and the doctors don't really agree. So I know I was saying earlier that I was around 16 when I first discovered this movie, Hollywood Video. The first ever version of this movie I saw was the 30th anniversary edition. Yeah, 60, 70, 80, 90. Yeah, it was the 30th anniversary edition that came out from Anchor Bay. And it removes 15 whole minutes from this original film and inserts 15 minutes of new footage that was actually shot specifically for this edition. And George Romero was not involved with this version of the movie whatsoever. Imagine the balls you have to take 15 minutes out of this movie and film 15 other minutes. And the reason why I mention this is because I had a very, very distinct memory of this scene being a lot longer. And
Eh.
uh, and then I rented that thing, and then every after that I bought the movie, but I bought the original version. So everything after that, I just saw this version that we saw. So I always had this memory in the back of my mind. I'm like, where's those other scenes? So they must have been cut. No, they were just filmed there, and they were in black and white and everything. But
What
so
happened?
in the 15 minutes,
Yeah.
so there's like 3 or 4 different scenes that they add in there, but essentially what they're trying to do in that is that they film. So a large portion of it is this interview scene right here. They add additional people. They
Okay.
add like a priest and that sort of thing. Um, but the majority of what they're doing is they show a zombie that is featured in the movie. They show them before they were a zombie. So, for example, I think they show Bill Hindman or Hinsman, can't remember his name. They show him before he was a zombie, like as he was just interred, that sort of thing.
Mm.
And then so to draw the connection later on where we see he's the original zombie, so that's the thing. But it's not lore and it's very controversial that this happened. But I just wanted to, you guys, there is another version of this. So if you think you've seen this movie a bunch of times, search out that version. And there's also a version of this called Night of Anubis, which was the original name that George Romero wanted to call this movie before it was changed because he realized nobody understood the reference to Anubis, who's like the Egyptian god of like mummies or mummification process, that sort of thing. So they ended up changing. Just one of the reasons why they ended up changing the movie. But so back to the movie. Helen wants to go to the rescue station to get help for Karen. Ben says Ben kind of tells their story of what him and his girlfriend, hell no, his Judy were doing. They were going swimming, and then they heard the reports, so they went to the house, the nearest house, and they found the dead body. Then Harry and his family showed up, so that's how they all got together. And the radio says that there's medical attention for anybody who's been hurt. And Ben Ben is like, "Oh wait, she's hurt. How did she get hurt?" And she says that they were bit. And he's like, "Oh fuck." There's no telling what kind of disease comes from those items, and they don't know yet that if you get bit, you turn. And actually, they don't. Holy shit! Does it? Oh yeah. Later on in the end, but like up front, we don't see like turned zombies very much until the very end,
Yeah.
right? Which is kind of ubiquitous in zombie movies after this. Is the threat isn't only of the outside zombies, but the zombies turning from within as well. So, um, so he tells her to go downstairs and stay with your kid. And then on the radio, on the TV, this was really cool. They say that one of the doctors says that they noticed earlier today that there was a cadaver whose four limbs had been removed, and it opened its eyes and tried to move. And I just thought the image of that is absolutely amazing. Uh,
Yeah.
it reminds me of, have you read the book, or at this point you could probably see the movie called Johnny Got His Gun?
No, I haven't.
So Got His Gun is an anti-war movie, anti-war book written by Dalton Trumbo, who was blacklisted during the McCarthy hearings of the
Yeah.
50s and all that sort of stuff. But he wrote this book. It was anti-war about this World War One veteran, and this happens immediately. It might even happen at the beginning of the book, so there's no spoilers. Um, he was blown up in a landmine explosion and lost his limbs, all of them, and is blind as well. And it's the he doesn't know it, and he very slowly comes to realize what's happening to him, but he's remembering it like through his life and what happened to get him there. It's horrific. It's absolutely horrific. It's an amazing book, but when he said the cadaver had four limbs and tried to move, it reminded me of
Ah,
when Johnny got his gun.
I gotta read
Um,
that. That sounds good.
yeah, I would definitely recommend it to anybody. It's a great book. And actually, really weird fact: Metallica loved the movie as well, and they wanted to use some of the scenes from the movie in one of their videos. I don't remember the name of the video, and they just straight up bought the rights to the movie. So Metallica owns the rights to Johnny Got His Gun, the movie, the film, the movie version of it, and can do whatever they want with it. And so it hasn't been released like as an updated Blu-ray or anything like that. So that part's
Ah,
yeah. Um, okay, sorry, tangent. Um, so they say the bodies should be cremated. He tells them that they could be reanimated if they don't. Take them out to the street and just burn them. Forego the comforts of a burial and just burn them. This is when they're kind of hatching the plan of what they're going to do. Essentially, they're going to make Molotov cocktails. They're going to throw them out of the window to distract the zombies. While the zombies are distracted, they're going to run to the truck. They found the keys to the gas pump. They're going to drive to the gas pump, fill it up, come back, pick everybody up, and sail off into the sunset happily ever after. And of course, as we all know, that's exactly what happens.
the end.
Uh,
It's good
yeah, the
talking
end.
to you.
Good talking to you. So actually, what ends up happening is so Tom is going to drive. Harry's going to toss the cocktails down to distract them, and Ben's going to go along to help Tom. And then they're going to come back and get everybody. They're preparing the cocktails. Judy doesn't want Tom to go. She's sad about it, but he kind of explains, we need to do this. Okay, so then they move Barb downstairs to keep her safe, and then I'm calling her Barb like we're on a first date basis. Um, So they take the boards off the door, and then suddenly, like Judy peeks up from like downstairs, and Tom's looking at her, kind of confused, like, "What the fuck are you doing? We're about to run outside." And immediately, what did you think when you saw her there? Like before we see what she actually does, did you did you see what was going to be happening?
Yeah, I could see. I mean, also, I wouldn't want to be stuck in the house with Cooper, so I would have run out with him too.
Oh, I guess that's true because now Ben is gone and Tom is leaving, so she would have been by with him, and obviously Helen would have still been there. But yeah, I get that. But Cooper starts tossing the cocktails, which scares the zombies, allows them to get to the cars. Tom tries to start the car, but it doesn't start. At the last minute, right before Cooper's trying to close the door, Judy runs out to try and fights to go out with them. And then Ben says, "Well, come on if you're coming." And she gets in the truck, which such a bad idea. Like completely fucks them up. Like I think what happened with the gas in the truck would have happened, but Tom would have been alive, right? And let me get to that.
Yeah,
So Ben jumps in the back of the bed. Um, he's using he's got a torch and just to make the zombies back up. They drive to the pump, but the key doesn't work. So Ben shoots the lock off, which is dangerous as fuck, but he's a great shot apparently.
yeah,
I was like, whoa, what the fuck are you doing, dude?
yeah. That scared the shit out of me. What the fuck?
But he's a great shot. He shoots the lock off, and Tom starts grabs the pump and immediately starts spraying gas everywhere. Like he's
Yeah.
never pumped gas a day in his fucking life. And I wonder if that's true because I know, like in New Jersey, to this day, you're not allowed to pump your own gas. They have gas attendants. You
Oh,
stay in your
really?
you stay in your car, or I guess you can go out to get a drink or soda or whatever. But yeah, there's gas attendants there that pump the gas for you. So perhaps maybe that's how it is in Pittsburgh, and he's never pumped a day in his life. Who the fuck knows? But yeah, so he's spills gas everywhere. It's he gets it on the car, and then he gets some on the torch that lights the gasoline on fire, which trails up to the truck, and Tom panics and drives into the truck and drives away, saying, "We need to get away from need to get away from the pump." And then, but Ben is calmly just takes the blanket out and puts the fire out on the ground, and he yells for Tom to get out. And they drive a bit away. Tom gets out, but fucking Judy's jacket gets stuck. On what, we'll never know. But Tom goes back to help her, and just then the truck explodes, lighting up Cooper's face and stunning Ben. How quickly it all went awry. What did you think when all this happened?
I mean, it was intense, and it was a lot of stupid decisions led to their death. Uh, but yeah, I was really confused what she was caught on. It happened so fast. I didn't know what was happening there with her. It was like
Yeah,
she wasn't getting. It looked like she wasn't getting out of the car because she was scared. I thought, and then they just blow up. So I didn't know that her jacket was caught.
I think they explained it a bit earlier. It's like the fight or flight symptom with her. Tom was saying, earlier when he was trying to convince her that he had to go, he's like, "Do you remember when there was that great flood and we had to, how hard it was to convince you that it was time to leave and it was so dangerous if we stayed? Like, it
Yeah,
was time to go then." So I think perhaps she just like freezes up when she's caught in those scenarios. Uh, I don't think it was explained all that well. Here
mm-hmm.
it just looked like it was something stupid, right? But I think there was a bit of that shown to us earlier in the movie. But yeah, it's so fucking frustrating. And she could have gone out the other door. Like she didn't have to crawl through his
Yeah.
door, you know? But so yeah, unfortunately they both end up dying. Suddenly Ben realizes he's alone and he's surrounded by a mass of zombies. He picks up the torch and just swings at them for them to get away. He very slowly makes his way back to the house. Cooper was on his way back to the cellar, which here I don't blame him, right? Like he doesn't know that Ben survived at this point. But then
Yeah.
he hears Cooper pounding at the. I'm sorry, Cooper hears Ben pounding at the door, and he's like pausing whether or not he's going to go help him. Right. Then suddenly, Ben breaks the door down and sees that Cooper had made up his mind to go downstairs and not help him, and he's giving you the "I'm gonna fucking kill you" stare. And honestly, at this point, Cooper should have done a full send on the villainy and just gone downstairs and not help because you're dying, dude. He's gonna fucking kill you. But he doesn't, and he ends up helping to try to board up the
Yeah. I think he's trying to save a little bit of himself. Like, oh, maybe if I help him now, he'll be okay with me.
door. Yeah, I don't know, man. If I was, I would have just closed the door and taken my chances because the look Ben gave is, yeah. So then once that's done, Ben looks at him and punches the shit out of him, beats his fucking ass. We've been waiting for this all movie. And
Yeah,
he
it's
says,
very satisfying.
very satisfying. And he says, I ought to drag you out there and feed you to those things, which I think this speaks volumes to Ben's character, even though um, Harry was going to leave him out there to die, he still doesn't kill him. He has every reason to kill him and doesn't kill him. So now we kind of see the aftermath of the explosion. We see the charred bodies of Judy and Tom. Um, we see zombies fighting for their cut of the meat. It's a barbecue. There's guts and livers. It's very gory for the time. But this movie
Yeah.
came out before the rating system, like a couple months before the rating system was installed. And so this was one of the last films to not have a rating.
Mm.
So that's why I have a quote from Roger Ebert later on and talking about the children. And that's why basically children were able to see this movie without parents, which so what did you think of like the bones being picked clean, the femurs, all the viscera that was being chewed on by the zombies, all this stuff?
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. I wasn't expecting them to show that in this film, and it was really cool to see. And then just the characters inside the house looking in horror at that is really great too. Doesn't
Yeah.
Cooper like look out the window and then he sees that happening,
Um, I know he
or has he
sees
already
where
gotten
the
his ass beat?
yeah, he's already gotten his ass beat at this point.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but I think they do look out at some point after this and just see the wreckage and the carnage. But so inside, Ben is processing what just happened. Helen comes upstairs and asks if it's 3 o'clock yet, 3 a.m. because there's going to be a broadcast at that time. And Ben asks, where your car is at, and they say that Harry and Helen say that the car was turned over, and Ben says maybe we could flip it back. And again, Harry is just being a negative Nelly and can't think, isn't trying to help at all. And he says, "It's a mile away. Are you going to carry Karen a mile?" And then Ben says he can carry her. And how Cooper must feel where this stranger says he can carry your sick daughter a mile when you can't even muster you to do it yourself to do it. Absolutely despicable character. Oh, and then this is where he asks what's wrong with her. Yeah, I said it earlier, but it was here. She was bitten. Ben immediately sees the problem. He knows. He says, "Who knows what kind of disease those things carry?" And
Yeah.
then Barbara kind of wakes up again. She says, "Johnny has the keys." She keeps saying over and over. Then Ben asks Barb where your car is. But then they hear more zombies outside, and then we see more scenes of the cookout, guys' bodies being eaten. And then on the TV, again, they go into mysterious radiation levels are increasing. Dead bodies continue to transform into the ghouls. Anybody who dies will turn into a ghoul. Then they show on the news broadcast, they show armed men forming a militia to kill them. And then this is where we kind of meet the sheriff for the first time, I believe. Did you say you had a quote about this from the sheriff?
Yeah. I love the anchor says, "Are they slow moving, Sheriff?" And he says, "Yeah, they're dead. They're all messed up." I just really liked it. And his line read of it was really great.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's another iconic line. And then he also says, "Beat them or burn them." They go up pretty easy. Um, and that news reporter, that was Bill Cardell, who was the who played Chili Billy, the horror anchor like Svengoolie or Joe Bob
I
Briggs.
love Svengoolie.
Yeah, yeah, Svengoolie. We're from Chicagoland area. We know
Yeah.
Svengoolie. Yeah. I took Svengoolie for granted growing up. I was just thought like he was just there, everybody, and now I miss him so much. I miss turning on, you know, WCU was it or the channel that he used to come
Yeah,
on?
WCU. Yeah, I was on his show once because I went as Svengoolie for Halloween one year, and I sent him the picture. And then he put it on one of the episodes.
That's amazing, man. That is so cool. That's awesome. So then finally they lose power. The lights go out, and I'm like, uh-oh, the shit's about to hit the fan. Like we're at the crescendo of like the action happening here. Harry says, Helen, I have to get that gun.
Yeah.
And Helen says, haven't you had enough? And outside, the zombies start arming themselves for the final siege. They start breaking windows and knocking down doors. At one point, Ben's trying to hold them back with the rifle. He drops it. Cooper goes to grab the rifle after he drops it. And then all of a sudden, he's a big, tough guy, big, strong man. He's like, "You want to stay up here now? You want to stay up here now?" He's like, "Go ahead. We're going downstairs." And he tells his wife to go downstairs. But he's distracted for a second, and Ben hits him with the piece of wood and attacks him, and is very quickly able to grab the gun back from him. They tussle for a bit, and then he shoots Cooper right. It appears like in the stomach, I believe.
Yeah.
Uh,
Or he
and
shoots him more than once, though, doesn't he?
at this point, only once, and he shoots him later
Okay.
on downstairs.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
But then Helen is kind of grabbed through the windows or the doors, and Cooper goes downstairs to die, and he kind of dies by Karen. The first zombie appears again, and this kind of emboldens Barb. She remembers kind of who she was, and at this point, she's like, okay, she's gonna help. She helps long enough for Helen to get away, and Helen goes downstairs, and she sees that Karen has eaten half of Cooper's arm.
Yeah.
Great effect. I love
Yeah.
this. What did you think, Karen?
Yeah, I loved it. It was great. It was really shocking, and just seeing a child zombie is still like so awesome. I love it. You don't expect to see it, so I really liked that part.
Yeah, agreed. So she advances on her mom, and she grabs a spade and
Yeah,
continues. And once she gets to her mom just doesn't know what to do. She just like falls back because is in shock of her daughter's dead and has just ate her father's arm and is now attacking her. What the fuck are you gonna do? I would probably punch her in the throat, but that's just me. And she falls backwards, and she's continuously stabbed as blood rains over her and on the wall. Blood, quote unquote blood, but it's Bosco.
yeah,
And then the noise of Helen screaming will be with me till I die, because they do this really weird, like they filter it, and they filter the scream, and it just like goes over and over and over
yeah. It's
again.
really creepy. I liked it a lot. It was really funky and just like very different from every other part of the film.
It's very psychedelic, sort of.
Yeah, I liked it a lot.
Yeah. And then back upstairs, the zombies have broken through, and Barb is grabbed by Johnny, and she is the look on her face is of surprise. And you thought, I was like, yes, she's gonna make it. It's gonna be Barb, and it's gonna be Ben at the end. But no, Johnny grabs her, and he just turns around and takes her into the zombie horde, and she's swallowed by this zombie horde. And this is what I was talking about earlier. She was just being grabbed by men, right? Like all
Yeah,
these men's hands were just grabbing at her clothes, and she was terrified. Again, Judith O'Day got a chance to show her acting chops here, how terrified she was, and
yeah.
it just looked great. But what did you think when you saw this happen?
I was surprised because yeah, I definitely thought it was gonna be Barb and Ben at the end, surviving. So I was really surprised when that happened. I thought it was cool. I love they brought Johnny back. I think that was great. Had the Dom gloves come out and
Yeah, yeah.
laughing at his sister.
Love it. Loved it so much. It's tragic. That's all this movie is. It's just one tragedy after another.
Yeah.
Which I love, that love of the despondence and despair. You know,
Yeah, happy endings in horror, I think, are we have too many of them. We need to have more just miserable films like this.
and because I grew up on horror films and like specifically like Night of the Living Dead, like when me and my wife got together, she wasn't big in horror. She's not. She would watch movies with me. She's bigger now, but she wasn't then. And so we'd watch these, romantic comedies, whatever movies that she liked, and there would be these happy endings, and I'd be like rolling my eyes, like, oh geez, we know what happens. They get together in the end, blah blah blah. It's because of this movie, because Night of the Living Dead fucked me up, and I wanted the fucked up ending. So now the zombies are coming from everywhere, and Karen has actually come upstairs, and she sneaks behind Ben and grabs him. And the first time I saw it, I was like, "Oh my god, he's gonna get bitten!" But he ends up like grabbing her, throwing her to the side. The look of surprise and disgust on Dwayne Jones' face was real. Romero didn't tell him this was going to happen, so he was surprised when uh, zombie Karen he turned around and zombie Karen was there. So that was great. He got the surprise from his actor.
Yeah.
So now he goes down into the cellar, which, like we said, if everybody had worked together, this could have been our last resort, sort of thing. But now the house has been breached. The doors, the windows, everything. Ben secures the door with two
Pieces of
two
wood.
pieces of wood, and it looks really pretty well protected to me. Then Cooper comes back to life, and this is where Ben lets off 3 rounds into him. You love to
Yeah.
see it. And then we see Helen here, and uh, he kills Helen as well. And I forget. I remember. He no. Uh, Karen is upstairs, so she's not down there. Okay, cool. I was like, what happened to Karen? But she lived, or
Yeah.
unlived. Um, so then Ben kind of loses it now. He's not sure
Yeah,
what
he
to
throws
do.
the gun and he's such a good actor. I'm really impressed with the performance Dwayne Jones does in this.
Yeah, you can feel like he doesn't know what to do here, and us as the audience, we don't know what the fuck to do because we thought we were safe. We were at the end.
Yeah.
Ben is alive. Barb is still alive. We're gonna make it. It's 3 a.m., probably like 4 or 5 a.m. at this point. Like, this is the end of the movie. This is the happy ending. So we don't know what the fuck is going on, right? So we're with Ben on this. So Ben kind of loses it now. He's not sure what to do. He grabs his rifle and just waits, but the zombies can't get in. Then we kind of go. The next morning has arrived. We see a news helicopter, which is we see again in Dawn of the Dead, and we also see it in Day of the Dead as well. So it's a theme in the movies. We see the militias, we see cops, we see dogs. The chief tells a couple of fellas to get some other men and check out the house behind the trees, our house, the one that we've been at. And then everything appears. One of the reporters kind of says, to report back to the station that everything appears to be under control. And then they're just kind of shooting the straggler zombies here and there, the ones that have survived the night. And you kind of feel like during the day, they're not as dangerous, right? At
Yeah.
night, they're very dangerous. So at this point, we see Ben. He's in the basement. He had been sleeping, and he's awoken by the dogs and the gunfire. And then the sheriff and his right hand man Vince walk up to the truck that was on fire, and they say, "Somebody had a cookout here, huh, Vince?" Which is very very mean. But at this point, before what happens, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I think things are over and Ben's gonna be okay.
Okay, you poor
Yeah. I
innocent little sad. So then Ben cautiously goes upstairs to see what's going on, and the sheriff says, "Get out there, get out in that field and build me a bonfire." Then Vince sees something move in the house and he says so. Then Ben approaches the window with his rifle drawn. And then the sheriff says, "All right, Vince, hit him in the head, right between the eyes." The rifle goes off. Down goes our hero, Ben. The sheriff says, "Good shot. Okay, he's dead. That's another one for the fire." Then the movie immediately switches to still photos of the aftermath, reminiscent of the old photos of black men lynched and murdered by white mobs. Fish hooks being used to move the bodies. The men are standing right above Ben. Then shots of like we see him action shots of like the fish hooks coming down, and we see him stabbed repeatedly with them, and he's moved slowly. They move him out of the house. They're dragging the body, and he's taken to the pile to burn. Then we see that they light the fire. I'm thinking, what a tragic ending. He's laying right next to the original zombie. They set the bonfire on fire. It's lit, and it's the end. It's a lot to go through real quick, but I just felt like it needed to go through really quickly. That's the end of the movie. What was going through your mind?
It was so disturbing how quickly it ended. Like right when Ben goes down, pretty much. Then they're just like the sheriff just lightly says like, "Good work, another one for the fire," and then all these just really disturbing images, like still images that they feel like racist cops or like Nazis or something, and then it's over, and like you don't get any kind of comfort at all as the film ends. It ends on like such a nasty note. I really liked it. It was just kind of shocking.
Yeah, extremely shocking. I can't even remember the first time I saw it, but every time I see it, I want Ben to survive. I
Yeah,
I know that this ending shot up the movie to a different stratosphere, right?
yeah,
But
for sure.
Ben was our hero. Ben was when the movie started, we thought that it was going to be either Barbara or Johnny, right? That's who we
Yeah,
thought our protagonists were going to be, and Romero and also Russo very adeptly, I thought, like switched our protagonist, and now we have this black man, and for me, like I was a fan of horror in spite of seeing representation in it, not because of it, right? And
mm,
so when I saw, and I'm not black, but I saw a person of color, a black or
yeah,
indigenous person of color, and I thought, man, there's somebody, not non-white like I am, and it's just like I get emotional because he was like the heart and soul of the movie, and to see his body treated the way it was, like taken through the streets, like so many like black bodies have been done in America. It's just
yeah,
there's you know it's so difficult to describe what that feeling is, and like to say like when people say that horror isn't political, they don't fucking know what the hell they're talking about, right? Because it's
yeah.
always been political, and this is one of the best examples of it being political. And it's just an amazing ending. To me, what is an amazing film. So one thing I wanted to mention here was that at one point when the filmmakers were considering doing an alternate ending that would permit Ben to survive, but Dwayne Jones stood firm and he said, "I convinced George that the black community would rather see me dead than saved after all that had gone on in a corny and symbolically confusing way. Besides," said Jones, "the heroes never die in American movies. The jolt of that and the double jolt of the hero figure being black seemed like a double barreled whammy," according to an article on thewrap.com. So, in his own words, like Dwayne knew the character inside and out, knew
Yeah.
his experience as a Black American, and knew the best ending for the movie. You know,
One thing I find kind of interesting too is I can't remember the name of these. I've seen a few very early horror films where they used the word zombie, but it was like very African centric. Remember, it was kind of racist depictions of black people who like they were under a spell or something. So they were kind of racist. And then like the first like real kind of modern zombie film, it gets to have a black lead, and it's a really strong portrayal. It's not these like racist stereotypes they used in those early films. I think one of them is actually just called Zombie, isn't it? Do you know the films I'm
There,
talking about?
yeah, there's White Zombie, which is where
Yeah,
they
that
got
yeah.
where the band Rob Zombie got his name from. White Zombie, that's where he got it from. And then I Walked with a Zombie is probably the
Yeah.
other one you're thinking about. And both of those took the zombie um, idea from Haitian culture,
Yeah.
voodoo, voodoo culture, and the idea of zombies being people that are controlled by witchcraft or by voodoo, and so you would blow like this powder in somebody's face, and they became your your slave, for lack of a better
Yeah.
word, but like they were um, to your beck and call, like basically, right?
Yeah, but I find a lot of the voodoo stuff always a little problematic the way like white Hollywood handled it. So I think it's cool to then you like the new zombie or in this film and it's a black lead and he's not following any of the stereotypes that I think Lego had in previous films.
100%. Yeah, I agree with you there. So I guess I just want to hear what you, in general, we're going to rate it in a second here, but I wanted to know what you thought of, in general, Night of the Living Dead.
I gave it a lot of shit, but I really do love the film. I watched it a second time last night because I wanted to just make sure I wasn't missing things, and I enjoyed it even more the second time. Uh, yeah, I was surprised. I went into this with a dog shit attitude. I was expecting it to be bad, and I would just be shitting on it. And then I was worried that Romero fans are gonna want to kill me. But I ended up really, really liking it, and it took a lot of twists and turns I was not expecting. Such an early like zombie film to take. I was really blown away by it. I think it lives up to the hype, which I did not think I was going to walk away with that.
I'm really happy to hear that. I'm happy that you enjoyed it. I think this episode is a bit longer, and I apologize for keeping you. It
No,
felt like this was like a pivotal movie in not only horror history but film history. I mean,
yeah,
just all the things that we talked about. Just an absolutely incredible film. It has, just due to the nature of it being a low budget horror film shot outside of the major studios. There's some things that has uh, some issues that it has, right? But overall, I think it's just just amazing, like time capsule of what was happening in the '60s, and the way that it could still be um, used today to show like things that are happening in today's society
yeah,
is just amazing. So yeah, absolutely pivotal, important work. That's the reason why it's in the MoMA. That's the reason why it's been preserved by the in the Library of Congress. I could just go on and on, but one thing I wanted to say, and then we'll go into ratings, was this quote from Roger Ebert from January 5th, 1969. It was not a review of the movie, more of a review of the audience that saw the movie. And he said, the kids in the audience were stunned. There was almost complete silence. The movie had stopped being delightfully scary about halfway through and had become unexpectedly terrifying. There was a little girl across the aisle from me, maybe 9 years old, who was sitting very still in her seat and crying. I don't think the younger kids really knew what hit them. They were used to going to movies, sure, and they'd seen some horror movies before, sure, but this was something else. This was ghouls eating people up, and you could actually see what they were eating. This was little girls killing their mothers. This was being set on fire. Worst of all, even the hero got killed. It's hard to remember what sort of effect this movie might have had on you when you were 6 or 7, but try to remember. At that age, kids take the events on the screen seriously, and they identify fiercely with the hero. When the hero is killed, that's not an unhappy ending, but a tragic one. Nobody got out alive. It's just over. That's all. And I know he was talking about the kids, but he was actually talking about me as well, because that's how I felt. So I have so much more I could talk about, but I think we could just go into ratings here. So we rate the movie out of 5 upside down crosses. So Warren, how many upside down crosses would you give Night of the Living Dead?
I think I'll give it 4 upside down crosses. I really liked it.
So just to be clear, I said that we go up to 5.
Yeah.
Are you aware? Okay, and you're gonna give
Okay,
it
I'll give it
4.
4.5. I'll give it 4.5.
No,
Okay.
no. I'm messing with you. I'm just joking with you 100%. I just want to. If four is your rating.
If they used more than 2 boards on the basement door, I would have given it 5. But yeah, I think it's 4 or 4.5.
Anthony, he's giving it 4 upside down crosses. I just want you to know. Okay. We'll talk about it later. Okay, 4 upside down crosses from Warren Wagner. You want these people to buy your book, right, Warren?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just making sure. Okay.
5 stars.
For me, of course, I'm gonna give if I could give it higher, I would give it higher. This movie is so important to me. I mean, important to the zeitgeist, and to the culture at large. It spawned countless movies and tropes and all that sort of stuff. It all started here first. But for me personally, it's important as well as one of the movies that cemented my love for horror, and made me feel like I had a place in horror. And so for me, I will give it 5 upside down crosses. This is a perfect film for me. No notes.
I will say I wish I watched this a lot sooner. I feel really stupid for not having watched it a lot earlier. I would have been great to see it at 16, I think.
But I mean, imagine there still being movies out there that you haven't seen that you're able to experience,
Yeah.
And that's really the reason why I do this show. It's because there's these classics that people, and I love newer movies and all that, but there's these classics that people haven't seen for one reason or another, and I love sharing that experience with them. So thank you for allowing me to share that experience with you.
Oh, thank you.
So Warren, what we do now is I ask for a movie in a similar vein to this. It could be another zombie movie, it could be another Romero movie, it could be another Siege movie, anything like that. So do you have a movie in mind?
Yeah, so it's another contained zombie movie that does a lot of stuff outside the box. I think it's great. It's the Canadian film Pontypool.
Nice.
I'm sure a lot of zombie fans, I'm sure, have already seen it, but that's I think one of my top zombie films.
Agreed. That's a fun one. That is a really
Yeah.
fun one. For me, I am going to have to recommend to you 2 films, and you've already talked about it. It's the remainder of the original trilogy. So we have Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead.
Yeah.
I think it's just essential viewing for people. And I will just warn you now, for Dawn of the Dead, it gets campy, right? The 70s, right? Technicolor blood, think of, right? And then we bring Day of the Dead kind of brings it back to earth a little bit, and it's just raw and dirty and just so good. So yeah, I definitely recommend the rest of the original trilogy. And if you like that, perhaps you could take a look at the last 3. What is it? Survival, Land, and Diary. Or I think I don't know the order, but those are the rest of them. So all right, Warren. Well, that was the movie. If you could please once again let everybody know how they can follow you, how they can support your book, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, socials, I'm at Mr. Warren Wagner. My website is warrenwagner.ca, and I suggest you go on to ghoulishbooks.com to get The Only Safe Place Left is the Dark.
Nice. And so Warren and I are going to continue our conversation on the post-show Sunday school sessions, which is a Patreon exclusive. If you would like to support the show, patreon.com/myhorrorconfessional. That's it for this week. Thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.